Chapter 27. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. The game interface had already begun to operate at this time. Luonan gradually came to a decision in his heart. He was already disinclined to get entangled with Zhang Yingying. He swept his eyes over the wind speed and temperature data, and made a gesture to advance forward. Love, Gob Small, say, Netkoheya and his pet, the mechanical dog Newbie, which carried 2 boxes of ammunition, chose the highest hill in the surrounding area and began to climb. Zhang Yingying curled her lips and crossed her arms in front of her chest. She didn't do anything at all. Her mutant character, Wind Glory, floated in the air as if everything was within her control. Luonan understood her intentions. She was abandoning tactical maneuverability and directly deciding victory head-on. This was undoubtedly the best situation for a character like Haya to display his combat strength. As a newbie, Luonan recognized this preferential treatment. He controlled Blacktooth to set up a weapons platform at the top of the hill. He paid the price of completely sacrificing his mobility to achieve maximum firepower. Luonan waited for everything to be prepared, but he didn't say anything. He just made a provocative gesture. Zhang Yingying curled her lips and changed her hand gesture for the first time. She controlled Wind Brilliance, which was like a giant poisonous bee, and dashed all the way. In the blink of an eye, she had already crossed the center line of the battlefield. At this time, the marked distance between them was 987 meters. 900, 800, 700. Haya's light electromagnetic gun began to rumble, drawing a bright trail in the sky. Zhang Yingying suddenly became excited and announced anxiously, "I will crush you." No matter how amusing Zhang Yingying was, her skill in controlling the game was certainly far above Luonan's. Wind Brilliance's enormous body charged forward and danced in and out of the increasingly dense bullet trajectories. Once it broke through the 500-meter life and death line, it changed its location a few times, and the bullet comments that it had worked so hard to weave were torn apart. Newbie was corroded by the venom, and his ammunition exploded. Heya was also swept across the neck by the transparent bee wings. Count him. First blood. Across the desk, Zhang Yingying wagged her index finger at Luonan. Should I change my character? Luonan didn't say a word. He chose to restart the battle. Zhang Yingying accepted the challenge with a smile. While waiting for the battlefield configuration, she sensed something. She raised her head and saw Luonan's gaze pierce through the screen of light to fall on her face. It had been a long time since his gaze had moved. He raised his chin slightly and winked at her. What do you think? Beautiful, right? As for whether it was his appearance or his operating skills, that was up to the person to decide. Luonan didn't respond. His gaze slightly shifted away, but it didn't take long before it circled back. Miss Zhang Yingying was a natural beauty and was not afraid of being stared at. Moreover, there was a game in front of her, so she had to wait until she was satisfied. In the enclosed room, light and shadow intertwined and blurred. Time flew by in another form. Once the battle in the wilderness began, it never stopped. Then, a call came in to inform Zhang Yingying of the latest news. Finished. What time is it? TSK, they really fought through the night. The counter at the bottom of the screen showed the number of games, game time, and real time at the same time. Love, Gob Small, say, Netku. It could be seen that it was already 4:50 in the morning on the 28th. Luonan and Zhang Yingying had already fought over 200 rounds, consuming nearly 7 hours. It is indeed a divine creation that kills time. Luonan took a few deep breaths. Not only was he not tired from playing for a long time, his brain was in a state of extreme excitement. Right now he had to do something. Luonan picked up his notebook, flipped to a blank page, and began to write. In a short dozen or so seconds, the lines of the glittering pen had already sketched out a rough outline. It was still in the style of a sketch. He didn't ponder over the details, just drawing out the body movements of the characters and a more typical background. On the screen, a young girl with an indistinct face supported her cheek with one hand. Her other hand was making gestures. It looked a bit lazy at first glance, but the tension of her body told everyone. Her mind was focused, and she was overflowing with interest. She was playing a game. Whether it was 10 days in the wilderness or drinking or playing finger-guessing. In short, it was the same flavor. She was still evaluating her opponent. Perhaps it was because of an intense desire to win, or perhaps it was because of some other goal. Luo Nan's pen paused a bit. He was certain that this was the effect he wanted. Luo Nan had already observed Zhang Yingying for a full 7 hours starting from 10 p.m. last night. Compared to his usual quick observation and quick mastery, this was undoubtedly an atypical method. However, Luo Nan believed that it was worth it. From his perspective, Zhang Yingying was absolutely an object worth recording. But there was one more thing that needed to be displayed. Luo Nan's pen paused, but he didn't start writing for a long time. It wasn't that he couldn't grasp it, but once he started writing, it would be the same as expressing a certain attitude. He could completely wait and observe. He faced the sketch and sank into contemplation. Zhang Yingying had already finished her call. She turned off the game's effects with a bit of regret and said to Luo Nan, "You can go home now. It's just that the phantom needs to be left behind as evidence." "Oh right. You want to go straight to school? Don't you want to go home and sleep for a bit?" Luo Nan grunted and continued to ponder with his head lowered. The tip of his pen was about to fall, but he didn't. With Zhang Yingying's curiosity, how could she resist this? She immediately moved her head over to look, and then she was stupefied. She instinctively extended her hand to touch Luo Nan's forehead. "You want to hit on me, hey?" Luo Nan didn't dodge, nor did he raise his head. He allowed Zhang Yingying's warm palm to lightly press against his forehead. The tip of the pen in his hand sketched in greater detail. Kids these days matured this early. Zhang Yingying simply wanted to cover Luo Nan's eyes when she saw his cool appearance. But a subtle change in the notebook half a second later sucked away all of her attention. The special qualities of the luster pen actually didn't easily manifest the thickness of the shadows of the lines. But Luo Nan used the right amount of white space to reveal the long and narrow details of the lines. It was like a flowing band of clouds that curled around the young girl's body. It was like this. Even Zhang Yingying herself didn't realize that when she was high playing the game, the aura of her body would surge. Some things would be stripped of their concealment and revealed to the outside world. Perhaps an ordinary person might not be able to discover the mysteries within even if they were equipped with the most advanced scanning equipment. The problem was that ever since Luo Nan was brought along by the burning wraith, his soul had left his body for a walk. The perception of his eyes, ears, nose, and tongue had entered into a special mental plane. He was always able to see some inconceivable things. The room was extremely quiet. It was so quiet that the air seemed to have solidified. Luo Nan maintained his usual rhythm. He stopped writing and put away the pen. Then he connected the sensor pen to the pen tip and placed it back into the pen case. Then he pressed down on the not-so-sensitive pressing pad. He separated the metal ring rack and removed the draft. Having done all this, Luo Nan breathed in imperceptibly. He raised his head and handed over the draft with both hands. "Lawyer Zhang, I gift this drawing to you. Consider it as a token of thanks for today. For yesterday's matter." Zhang Yingying didn't respond in the first instance. She stared at the blurred drawing like she was looking at a mirror. She subconsciously raised her hand and compared it to the surface of the mirror. She reached back and touched the corresponding spot on her body. Her fingertips swept past. There was nothing there. Only her thoroughly tempered psychic senses received the corresponding feedback that originated from her body. "My white rainbow. This is what it looks like." Zhang Yingying was stunned for a full 10 seconds before she suddenly woke up with a start. Her gaze instantly nailed onto Luo Nan's face. "You! Psychic!" Chapter 28. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. Which one? Even though Luo Nan had already made many preparations, he was still a bit stupefied by this sudden form of address. Zhang Yingying's gaze was like a sharp blade, slicing back and forth across Luo Nan's face. But in this instant, Luo Nan's reaction could not be any more real. In the end, she gained nothing. And at this time, Luo Nan recovered from his momentary bewilderment. His eyes immediately lit up. "A shaman! Ugh, I think I spilled the beans." Zhang Yingying laughed and said, "All right, I'll accept your kindness." She took the paper, using it to block Luo Nan's line of sight. But because of this, her eyes couldn't help but linger on the paper again. Every time she looked at it, she would meow out of curiosity or scratch it. It was so torturous. 2 seconds later, Zhang Yingying couldn't help but put the sketch aside and asked directly, Why are you painting like this? What is a shaman? Their gazes, questions, and curiosities collided in the void. The situation was tragic. Unfortunately, no one was willing to make the first move. For a moment, they stared at each other in a deadlock. Since Luo Nan was sitting, there was a relatively large height difference between him and Zhang Yingying. He tried to stand up. However, just as his butt was 2 centimeters away from the chair, Zhang Yingying unceremoniously slapped his shoulder. This little bitch had quite the strength. It was as if a heavy barbell was pressing down on Luo Nan's shoulder. His entire body was forcefully pressed back, and even the metal chair creaked. Zhang Yingying leaned her body forward, practically touching Luo Nan's face. Her posture looked extremely intimate, but she believed that Luo Nan could certainly feel the pressure she exerted. Come, tell me, why are you painting like this? I don't remember. Zhang Yingying suddenly paused. She was, after all, a very intelligent person. She was just shocked by the sudden change. Now that she had calmed down, her brain was already working efficiently. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you testing me? Zhang Yingying suddenly came to a realization. That sketch was simply a trap Luo Nan had set for her. It was to probe her reaction. It was very clear that Luo Nan had already begun to suspect the purpose of her actions before he even started writing. Of course, suspicions were just suspicions. Luo Nan was able to skillfully and magnanimously use his own abilities to set up a trap for her. This was truly a pleasant surprise. Luo Nan sat on the chair. He didn't avoid looking at Zhang Yingying's beautiful face, which was already within reach. His gaze locked with hers, and his mood actually calmed down. You were the one who investigated me first. Also, you said that I won't choose Deep Blue, because you think that I'll be jealous of Quantum Corporation's continuous production of results based on formatting theory? Then, you must have investigated my family, or at least know about my grandfather. Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes. Has anyone ever told you that if you remember too many details from a young age, you'll be petty when you grow up? Chicks really do get smaller. After rambling for a while, Zhang Yingying admitted that she was a little angry, so she decided to throw her face to the Pacific Ocean. If you really mind the investigation, let's continue. Student Luo Nan, aren't you going to talk about your experiences in applying abilities? Luo Nan remained calm. I don't know what the ability is called, what its nature is, and what level it is at. I don't know any of this. How could I have any insights? Zhang Yingying was a bit stifled. She discovered that getting angry with the obstinate hero of darkness was a very meaningless action. There was simply no compromise option in Luo Nan's mind. Showing his cards on the table at the drop of a hat. No matter how much he pretends to be mature, he's still a little kid. After cursing a few times, Zhang Yingying still took a step back in the end. I didn't expect you to be so lacking in knowledge. I just pity you. Actually, if you look it up on the internet, you'll know that psychics are fellows who can have intimate contact with ghosts, specters, and the like. These people can sense incorporeal objects that normal people are unable to touch, and they can communicate with them. Apart from this, there's nothing special about them. Are you satisfied? Of course Luo Nan wasn't satisfied. If there really was nothing special about them, then why did she make such a fuss about nothing? It's your turn. Zhang Yingying wasn't about to lose out. She tossed out her own question once more. Why did you add a band of light to my portrait? A feeling. Luo Nan held back a bit. He patted his notebook. I always have a special feeling when I face interesting material. Then I draw it out and strengthen it appropriately. Perhaps this is the psychic ability? Is there a ghost on your body? You're the one with a ghost. Though she said this, Zhang Yingying was still quite satisfied with Luo Nan's answer. According to what she knew, the vast majority of psychics in this world did indeed use various mediums and ritual methods to strengthen their originally vague feelings. In the end, they achieved the effect of communicating with the incorporeal. For example, Luo Nan was able to use a pen and paper to vividly display that feeling. Whether it was efficiency or practicality, he was already extremely powerful. It was absolutely not an exaggeration to describe him as gifted. It must be known that right now was the eruption period of the Darksider life form. Zhang Yingying pondered a bit about the application prospects of this ability and felt her entire being become excited. How long has it been since your ability awakened? Are there any more paintings like this? Luonan looked at her strangely. Shouldn't it be my turn to ask now? Then I'll ask. Aren't there many ability users like you, Lawyer Zhang? Do you communicate with each other? How do you train and cultivate normally? How are the levels of abilities divided? What stage is my ability in between you guys? If... Click. Zhang Yingying crossed her hands and decisively called a time-out. Next, she stood a bit further away and looked at Luonan from head to toe. She sized him up very seriously and seemed to have realized something. You really don't understand anything. However, you're very interested in the circle I'm in? Luonan didn't hesitate in the slightest. Yes. I'm extremely interested. Zhang Yingying blinked her eyes. Even if I'm in an evil organization or simply an extraordinary strength research institute, the kind that specializes in slicing and researching, would it still be the same? An organization? Luonan keenly grasped the key point and responded without the slightest hesitation. You guys are already paying attention to me, right? If you discover that I have the so-called psychic ability, don't you want to recruit me? Kidnap and imprison me? Hee, narcissist. Fine. Even if it's like this, shouldn't you be waiting for a good offer under normal circumstances? What's up with you looking like you're in a hurry to apply for a job? Luonan thought for a bit and responded like this. Between an outstanding student and an inexperienced employee, I choose the latter. For example, he would rather choose the Mystic Arts Research Society to be an odd job worker who could carry out independent experiments than go to the Chemistry Society and be an honest gifted student for a year. He needed pressure and opportunities. After all, he didn't have much capital left. His grandfather's time didn't have much. That circle that could possibly be filled with ability users. Even if he had to crash into it, he had to crash into it. And he had to do it in the most efficient way. Luonan stood up and faced Zhang Yingying. Under her stunned expression, he gave a proper bow. Therefore, I ask Lawyer Zhang to seriously consider this and give me a chance to join. Chapter 29. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. Zhang Yingying maintained her silence for a few seconds after Luonan bowed. Love, go small, say, netko. Only when Luonan straightened his body and looked straight ahead did Zhang Yingying pursed her lips slightly. She slowly opened her mouth and her voice sank a bit. I can understand how you feel. Even though they have amazing abilities, they don't know how to explore their secrets. They can only face one problem after another and walk in circles. Looking around, they can't find anyone they can communicate with. They don't know what kind of attitude the world has towards a different kind. Many people in the circle were once like this. She took a light step forward and placed her hand on Luonan's shoulder. Only this time, her hand was placed extremely gently. You have determination. This is very good. But you have to understand what you will face. Zhang Yingying's voice suddenly swallowed. Luonan looked over in astonishment. He saw the female lawyer's face. Her eyebrows, the corner of her eyes, the line of her lips, and even her plump cheeks all trembled and warped. In the end, she couldn't hold it in. She exploded with laughter. I'm sorry. Zhang Yingying's saliva sprayed directly onto Luonan's face. She hurriedly reached out her hand to wipe it off, but halfway through, she saw Luonan's incomparably marvelous expression. A second wave of explosive laughter erupted out. In the end, she could only powerlessly press down on Luonan's shoulder to support her body. She laughed to her heart's content the entire way. Ha 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 ha. Oh my God, you really believed it, didn't you? I've only heard of such a fledgling before, and now I've finally met one. Zhang Yingying laughed until she was curled up powerlessly. Her chin was pressed against Luonan's shoulder, preventing her from crouching to the ground. Luonan had a warm and fragrant body in his embrace, but who knew how much of a shadow this hot and sexy beauty had cast over him? Of course, Zhang Yingying knew that she had gone overboard. She apologized with all her might, but every time she apologized, she couldn't help but break down when she saw Luonan's expression. She tossed and turned until the military sent people over to urge them to leave the ship. Only then did she recover. Nearly 24 hours later, the investigation by the government, the military, and Quantum Corporation finally came to an end. There was no reason to detain too many people, so they began to chase them away. Zhang Yingying held onto the crook of Luo Nan's arm the entire time they were on the way out of the ship. She begged for forgiveness with soft words. Even though everyone was looking at him, he had no intention of letting go. I'm sorry. As a man, you must be broad-minded, right? At most, I won't say that your chick can't grow up anymore. Crack. Luo Nan finally called a halt. He understood. She wasn't using her beauty. She was using awkwardness to force him. Luo Nan had to concede defeat to Zhang Yingying's shamelessness. Moreover, he was a bit irritated by her style of beating around the bush and not getting to the point. All right, Lawyer Zhang, Miss Zhang, I just want to know about this industry, information that is meaningful. Let's leave everything else in the past, okay? Zhang Yingying was finally satisfied. She let go of him with a grin. Sure, let's talk in the car. Luo Nan bid farewell to the military transport ship. He bid farewell to an entire day of annoyance. He sat in Zhang Yingying's sports car. Love, go, small, say, Netka Luo Nan intentionally kept his distance from this shameless girl, so he sat alone in the back seat. Zhang Yingying turned to look at his expression and almost burst out laughing again. Only when Luo Nan raised his cold and sinister gaze did she restrain herself a bit. All right. Let's get to the point. First of all, I can be sure that you've certainly read too many novels. You think that people like us carry out mysticism from beginning to end and form some secret society or dark organization. Aside from not reading novels, everything else was correct. Luo Nan was speechless for a time. Zhang Yingying chuckled as she started the car. What era are we in right now? Experts don't flaunt. They don't show off their consummate skills. They might as well be dead. Our industry is actually quite active. There's only one reason why you haven't discovered it. There are too few people. The flying car set a path to Acumen College. It cut into the superconducting road and entered a constant speed gliding state. The percentage of ability users has been constantly rising in recent years. But according to the most recent and most extensive statistics, excluding the vagrants of the wilderness and the burners of the military, there is only one ability user per 20,000 people. There are less than 600,000 people in the entire world. As for the number of awakened who are truly recognized by the circle, the number is even fewer. According to the latest statistics of the society, there are approximately 70,000 people. This is the result of the society's constant promotion of the Awakening Project and the nurturing of new people for the past 20 years. Society. Luo Nan caught on to the keyword. It's a professional society. We also need to protect our rights and interests, okay? Of course, due to our small scale, we are affiliated with the International Science Exploration Association. We are classified as professional explorers. In the future, you can directly go to the Exploration Association of this city. You can resolve a lot of miscellaneous matters there. Let's continue talking. Due to their bloodlines, inheritances, and radiation circles, the distribution of the 70,000 awakened is extremely uneven. There are 88 large metropolitan areas. Some only have 2 or 3 awakened. A relatively lively place like Xia City only has 1,000 awakened. Among them, there is a considerable portion who prefer to adventure and train in the wilderness. There are even fewer awakened who stay in the city. You need to understand. The majority of these 1,000 people have their noses in the air. They are arrogant and unruly. They are eccentric and perverted. If you want to gather them together and form some secret organization. I'm sorry. I have to laugh a bit longer. Luo Nan listened attentively. He obtained a set of practical numbers from Zhang Yingying's mouth. Each image gradually constructed a strange yet marvelous world in his heart. Half an hour later, the flying car approached the campus of Acumen College. The flying car connected to the guiding light rail and began to line up to enter the landing platform. Luo Nan asked a few key questions after Zhang Yingying's explanation. Then he immediately returned to his quiet and introverted state, writing and drawing in his notebook. However, the vast majority of his drawings were messy lines with no meaning to them. He didn't produce any new works. This caused Zhang Yingying, who had been secretly watching him all this time, to be quite disappointed. Zhang Yingying teased him as they entered the landing platform. Are you nervous? You can't even draw anything? Shouldn't I be nervous when applying for a job? Especially when I heard you say that there's an entrance examination. Relax. This circle is very thirsty for new blood.
Since you have a certain amount of ability and have applied to join the society, it can be said that you have a 100% chance of passing.
The only difference is the initial evaluation. Do you still care about this bit of empty reputation? Oh, we're here. The car couldn't stay for more than a minute after entering the landing platform. Zhang Yingying didn't waste any more words. She said her goodbyes in a natural and unrestrained manner. You already have my contact information. We also have a common understanding regarding the matter of psychics. Then, I wish you a smooth entrance examination. Many thanks for your help. Luo Nan gave Zhang Yingying a deep glance. He nodded and left in the same straightforward and efficient manner. Zhang Yingying sent him off with a smile. She had a calm bearing. But when Luo Nan left, she went, ha, with a laugh. Her snow-white slender beautiful legs exerted strength and she threw off her high heels. She stood on the control panel and dialed a number. The signal connected and she shouted, "You're right. Boss, I discovered a very tender seedling. You must give me a bonus this month." Chapter 30. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Speak Net. Providing you with wonderful novels to read. Acumen College was located in the Pingjiang district. It belonged to the outskirts of the core city district of Xia City. Aside from the college, there were many high schools, and research institutes in great numbers. Together, they formed an education function area of nearly 100 square kilometers. It was one of the areas with the best culture and natural environment in Xia City. After Zhang Yingying escorted Luo Nan to school, she turned the car around and arrived at a research institute a few kilometers away from Acumen College. This research institute was under the name of the International Science Exploration Society. It was actually a meeting point set up by the awakened. Since the number of awakened in Xia City was sparse, this place was left empty all year round. Sometimes, there would be several months in a row without a trace of a person. However, when Zhang Yingying entered, she saw the rare figure of Aunt Susan, who was on duty. "Hey, Susan. Congratulations on gaining another 5 kilograms. Aunt Susan was half Caucasian. It was said that she was an extremely beautiful mixed blood when she was young, but now she was just a lazy and crude middle-aged woman weighing 120 kilograms. Her favorite hobby was to stay at home and play games. Because of this, she and Zhang Yingying could be considered kindred spirits. They usually had a pretty good relationship. "I'm working overtime every day. I'm going to die." Susan's thick chin shook as she complained loudly. What happened to the society's principle of say no to altered people? It hasn't even been 5 years and they're already saying, burners don't belong to altered people. They were originally targeting the archetype format's modifications. But now they're all changing their words one by one. They're a bunch of spineless liars. Zhang Yingying went, wow. They're going to recruit burners into the society? But the first batch of burners hasn't reached the end of their service period yet, right? I remember the agreement was 20 years. But there's a batch that retired early due to injuries. There's around 200 people. Our place will soon become the Veterans Society. 200 people. Zhang Yingying's eyes widened. How many burners are there in the entire world? 17,626 people. This is the latest data. Susan looked crude, but she was actually very sensitive to numbers. This made her the secretary who grasped the statistics of the society. She had great authority. We don't need to wait for the large-scale retirement wave in 20 years. In 10 years, the society's authority will be snatched away by the government. I'm not that pessimistic. Zhang Yingying did not intend to delve into this topic. She moved closer to Susan and looked at the various data in the giant projection area. Coincidentally, Susan zoomed in on someone's information, which surprised Zhang Yingying. He Wei, captain of Ship Lanshan's Special Forces Team 7. I just came out from there. 20 years old? When did she undergo the transformation? The first batch. It said that they got into a car accident when they were 15 years old and their lives were in danger. They used burners to modify themselves and extend their lives. After that, they developed in the military. They have outstanding military achievements and extraordinary backgrounds. They just retired today. But soon, she will become our vice president. Susan's words were full of sarcasm and ridicule,
But when it came to grading, she didn't hesitate to mark this person with a C+. In terms of entrance evaluation, this was already the highest grade. As a matter of fact, the two people present only had a C rating. Zhang Yingying clicked her tongue. Seeing that Susan was going to continue, she quickly pressed her hand.
Susan, dear, let me cut the queue.
Susan glared at him with her swollen piggy eyes.
F***CK off. Do you know how busy I am right now?
The grading and data entry of over 200 people needs to be completed within 5 days.
Damn it, this isn't something that can be solved with a few keystrokes. Of course. I know you're having a hard time, but think about our friendship.
Last week, I accompanied you to play Records of the Fallen Shackles War.
That was 3 days and 3 nights.
I wanted you to play a few rounds of Wilderness with me later, but you ran away.
Susan had a bit of a guilty conscience. I came back to work overtime.
The grudges of working overtime will be solved through working overtime.
Zhang Yingying picked up her flexible screen and slapped it onto the control panel in front of Susan. It's just this one person. I need him to enter the database today and apply for a grading evaluation. That's all.
Susan mumbled to herself, but in the end, she still stopped what she was doing and activated Zhang Yingying's flexible screen.
Oh my god. It's 10 days in the wilderness again. Are you still not tired of playing?
Susan quickly found the relevant module and connected it to the large projector in front of her.
Zhang Yingying had done the preparatory work quite well. It saved Susan a lot of effort. Playback.
Within the projection area, the scene of Luo Nan and Zhang Yingying's match in the game began to be replayed. This included the hand gestures he used to control his game character. It also included the movements of the game character, the changes in tactics, and so on.
Zhang Yingying didn't slack off because she had personally experienced it. She continued to observe very seriously. She was even more focused than Susan.
Luo Nan was indeed a novice from his control techniques. There were a lot of redundant movements, and there were many times where he would make mistakes. This resulted in weapons not being switched in time, multiple weapon coordination failures, and so on. However, all of this was meaningless from Zhang Yingying's perspective. She wasn't testing Luo Nan's esports level. Instead, she was testing something deeper. For example, when Luo Nan chose the trajectory of Blacktooth's bullets, the lines he drew with his fingers were so precise that it was as if he was using a ruler to trace them. Another example was when he faced Feng Huang's erratic movements. After suffering 2 losses, the accuracy of his predictions made Zhang Yingying secretly grind her teeth. Some of Luo Nan's qualities could be seen from these, but they weren't the core.
Susan made a move at this time.
She pressed her right hand to the center of the sensing area, and a brilliant white light immediately split the projected area into 2 halves. The game scene and Luo Nan's control playback were on one side. The corresponding real-time data chart was on the other side. As the scene played back, the numbers in many areas on the chart began to jump, pulling out many undulating and fluctuating trend curves. Over half of them were hovering in low positions, and they were relatively flat without any changes. But there were still 3 that had relatively large changes. Zhang Yingying displayed an even more focused expression. The control delay is from 12 to 09, and the stable time is over 4 hours.
TSK.
This level of concentration, and you say you don't like games. The increase in lethality is between 1% to 8%. It's a bit low, but it's not a problem if it can be increased.
Character activation.
The degree of personification is from 52% to 72%.
20 points.
Passing is not a problem. Zhang Yingying let out a long breath. Not to mention the ability, his basic qualities weren't without redeeming qualities. This made people a lot less worried.
Another non-combatant.
Your firm really doesn't have anyone else. It's not easy to make money with this kind of target, okay? Susan curled her lips and used the software to give a preliminary evaluation. Name: Luo Nan. Age: 16 years old, puberty, ability direction. Mental enhancement, precision, level determination. Unawakened, no points, potential standard. E+ recommended direction. Precision control, maintenance and production. Susan skillfully imported the data into the Society's exclusive database. She pressed a button and the system automatically sent out a contact message. It connected with a certain fledgling several kilometers away.
Chapter 31. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? To provide you with wonderful novels to read. Done. After finishing, Susan waved her hand to signal Zhang Yingying, who had disturbed her overtime, to scram. Zhang Yingying shamelessly refused to leave. Wait, I want to see who's participating in the actual assessment. Why do you care? Doesn't your firm only show its strength during the awakening ceremony? Within the professional association, there were 3 stages of care for newcomers. Altogether, there were 3 stages: assessment, awakening ceremony, and professional designation. Among them, the assessment was the most formalistic. To truly influence the newcomers and form cliques, they had to wait until the last 2 stages. Zhang Yingying giggled and replied, "We're very optimistic about this newcomer." You say that every time. Susan frowned. Yingying, is it interesting to ponder over newcomers every day? Moreover, they're all non-combatants. Their awakening is a bit easier, and your family's Empress Wu is indeed a specialist. She's guided quite a few people over the years and earned a lot of wealth. But, in our circle, this is the most important. A fat fist lightly pounded on the sensing area, emitting a muffled sound. Too much wealth attracts thieves. A tall tree attracts the wind. The richer you are, the more people will think about you. Look, 70% of the people in the hidden indigo firm are non-combatants. How can you guarantee your safety? You should know that not everyone inside and outside the association is willing to chat and talk business with you. Zhang Yingying's eyebrows jumped. Humph, that group of jealous people. They didn't even think about it. From Wu Jiaoyi to Her Majesty, it's only been a few years. My dear Susan, I know you're doing this for my own good. She revealed a smile as she spoke, wanting to hug Susan's fat face and give her a sweet kiss. Susan unhappily pushed her away. Little girl, are you pretending to be stupid or are you really stupid? I remember you used to be quite opinionated. How come you've completely become a yes man for Your Majesty these past 2 years? I still remember that for 2 years in a row, you haven't made any progress. Is your white rainbow blunt? Seeing that Susan was really angry, Zhang Yingying's smile faded a bit. She shrugged. I just agree with what the boss said. Even if a person has a heavy fist that can smash the world, it has no effect on the continuation of the existence of society. When he smashes the world, it is equivalent to erasing his essence. In the end, what governs society is still the resources and production that sustain its existence. Abstractly speaking, it is the economy and its various advanced forms. If we use our abilities on this, the efficiency will be even higher. Susan rolled her eyes. I think you've been brainwashed by Her Majesty Empress Wu. Strong fists can also suppress others and obtain everything. Zhang Yingying crossed her arms in front of her chest. We can do it in an easier and more perfect way. Susan punched the sensor again. You can't turn these things into fists. A fist that completely belonged to him. That way, others will be able to easily obtain everything by suppressing you. Who said that? The truth will prove everything. The puffy-eyed man and the almond-eyed man confronted each other, neither giving way to the other. When the message popped up on their wristbands at the same time, they snorted and lowered their heads. The priority notification flashed on the screen. Emergency meeting? All the awakened who are currently in Xia City need to participate? All virtual forms are rejected? It feels like a Hongmen banquet. Screw you. But it's a bad omen. I feel like it's not bad to be able to attend 50%. At most 50%. Zhang Yingying and Susan reached a common understanding in the time it took to exchange a few words. Then they pressed confirm at the same time. Susan shook her head. She no longer paid attention to the half-finished work. She raised her fat body and prepared to turn off her phone and leave. Hey. I still need to see the reply. See my ass. That kid probably forgot. Come. I'll take a ride in your car. He's clearly very impatient. Forget it. Let's go to the meeting first. I'll say this first. If you crush my car, you'll play with me in the wilderness for at least 10 days and 10 nights. I'll crush you for 10 days and 10 nights. The two laughed and laughed as they walked. They left their dispute in the completely empty research institute. Zhang Yingying was still considering whether or not she should give Luo Nan a call when she started the sports car. But she had second thoughts. That kid was sensitive and paranoid. Pressing him too hard wouldn't be good. So she put the matter aside for now. The sports car drove out of the main entrance of the research institute. It just so happened that it brushed past a powerful and luxurious Titan. Titan was the world's #1 hardcore car. And the most top-end version, Sky's Fury, was simply a floating tank. It was majestic and awe-inspiring. Lian Yu was sitting alone in the spacious back seat of the car at this time. Even if she lifted up the armrests and the foot pedals, she would still feel empty. It was just like her indescribably restless mood at this moment. Why did she agree to Li Xueqing's request to sit in his car back to school? Her current situation was completely different from what she had imagined. Li Xueqing's usual clingy temperament was completely different. He sat in the front by himself. He didn't talk to her at all during the ride. Instead, he made a few calls in a row. She didn't know what he was up to. Lian Yu had an ominous premonition, but she didn't want to think too deeply about it. She could only force herself to calm down and take out her makeup. A voice suddenly leapt into her ear while she was in a daze. It's been a while since I've seen the school's locker room. Especially the men's locker room. Suddenly hearing these words, Lian Yu's hand trembled and the makeup mirror fell to her feet. She bent down to pick it up. At this time, the spacious front seat turned around. The usually thin Li Xueqing sat on it. At first glance, he looked like a teenager that hadn't grown up. Lian Yu forced a smile and reached out to pick up the makeup mirror. But Li Xueqing, who was in front of her, also bent down as if to help. He grabbed Lian Yu's hand. "Jie, I'm sorry. I've disappointed you today." "Disappointed your mother? What qualifications do you have to say that?" Li Xueqing's surprisingly gentle voice didn't resonate with Lian Yu at all. Instead, it made her hair stand on end. Thinking that she was actually being fantasized about by such a guy, she almost slapped him. But as soon as she struggled, she saw Li Xueqing's gloomy and green face. It was like ice water was poured over her head. The virtual fire that had just been ignited was instantly extinguished. She could only speak as gently as possible. "Xueqing, calm down first." "I'm very calm. On the way here, I've already prepared a gift for you. Although it's not that pleasing to the eye." As he spoke, the projector had already projected a bustling stream of people to the empty space to the left of the two of them. It was just as Li Xueqing had said before. This was a school changing room. The people coming and going were all young students. Lian Yu noticed that the projection was displayed from a first-person perspective. It was like some immersive game. The controlled character even took the initiative to reveal the tools in their hands. A taser gun. A needle-less syringe. And in front of the character was a barely familiar figure. He was standing in front of a locker, changing clothes. That was Luo Nan. Lian Yu's voice trembled unconsciously. "What do you want to do?" Li Xueqing gently kneaded Lian Yu's palms. He laughed in a low voice. "I heard that he was the only one who passed the urine test in our group. He's like a white lotus. I'm afraid that the brothers won't accept this result." Lian Yu couldn't help but raise her voice. "The police have already concluded the case. What's the point of you blocking him now?" Li Xueqing had a face of astonishment. "Don't they say that there's a withdrawal period when you take drugs? What's the point of taking drugs again and again?" "Come, let's play together. Let's go." Double the monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant. Support me a bit, you can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk coins to draw monthly votes, 500 crosstalk coins, 10,000 crosstalk coins, 100,000 crosstalk coins to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 32. A Genius in 1 Second. Remember love? Speak Net. Providing you with wonderful novels to read. On the projection inside the car, the field of view slowly advanced forward. It swayed slightly along with the rise and fall of the gate. The distance to Luo Nan was getting closer and closer. Li Xueqing's mood became more and more engrossed. The strength of his hand increased, squeezing Lian Yu's hand to the point of pain. His mouth was still chattering endlessly. "Jie, did you know? I've loved playing these kinds of real-life games since I was young." "What virtual reality? Immersion? Compared to this, they're really weak. This is a real game that you've single-handedly controlled. In this place, there is absolutely no such thing as within 3 steps. The enemy is the enemy of a country. No matter how amazing the target is, he can only touch my puppet at most. He can't touch the incorporeal threads woven by money. He can't even touch me.
Look at their helpless and irritated expressions all the way to their complete failure and collapse.
There's nothing more interesting than this. Lian Yu's legs were already trembling unconsciously. The current Li Xueqing looked far too unfamiliar. Although this fellow was petty in the past, he was still quite careful with his face. He absolutely wouldn't have this sort of heartfelt monologue. He was clearly rolling in the mud, yet he still had an intoxicated expression. His entire person was already twisted. It seemed that the humiliation of being scared unconscious by Luo Nan yesterday had stimulated him into a madman. Lian Yu was fully aware that there was simply no way to communicate with a madman. But the problem was that Li Xueqing had an incomparably expectant expression, waiting for her response. She slightly moved the corner of her lips. She thought for a long time before squeezing out a few words. Wouldn't it cause too much of a commotion if we fight here? If everyone sees him being attacked, then his withdrawal period. Li Xueqing's expression became gentle again. He gently caressed the back of Lian Yu's hand. Jieyu, you're worrying too much. I'm not that stupid. Right now we're just feeling the atmosphere. A good game's plot must be solid. It can't be simple and crude. Come, let's watch together. As he spoke, Li Xueqing's hand exerted a bit more strength. Lian Yu didn't react at first, but her hand was pulled again. Only now did she wake up. After a bit of hesitation, she slightly lifted her butt to get up. The next moment, Li Xueqing, who was already impatient, forcefully pulled her into his embrace. Lian Yu let out a low cry, and was already embraced by Li Xueqing. Fortunately, the madman's main focus was not on this. After a deep embrace, he rested his chin on her shoulder and pressed his face against hers, maintaining an intimate position as he continued to observe the game. Since the two of them were now at the same angle, the car's AI very humanely expanded the projection range. With the support of the first-person perspective and the immersion function of the contact lenses, it was almost the same as being there in person. The recording and playback equipment faithfully restored the original sound environment in the changing room, and the buzzing sound waves made Lian Yu even more upset. Acumen College started from the 7th grade and implemented the Western style of rotating classes. There were no fixed classrooms. The students were like wild chickens, gathering and dispersing from time to time. Among the few crowded areas, the locker room was probably the noisiest. Every morning before class, hundreds and thousands of people would enter and leave the school. Countless rumors and gossips were like the buzzing of flies that would never stop. All of Luo Nan's classmates were in the vicinity of his locker. But this group of people came and went, and not a single person greeted Luo Nan. An invisible person. Li Xueqing observed Luo Nan's movements with the attitude of controlling everything. He laughed happily. You'll become famous soon. Just as he said before, Li Xueqing wouldn't go as far as to electrocute and inject Luo Nan in public. This didn't meet his expectations. He needed to properly deal with this fellow. There was more than one person who acted as Li Xueqing's puppet thug. As the son of a wealthy family with a wide network of friends, Li Xueqing was able to mobilize considerable power by disregarding the cost. Luo Nan finished changing his clothes and left with his old clothes. He was probably going to send them to the laundry room. Just as he moved, there were 4 or 5 people in the surrounding chaotic stream of people who followed him one after another. The upper left corner of the projection was like the mini-map of a classic game. The structural diagram of the nearby rooms was brought out. Li Xueqing was brimming with interest as he chose the location and method. What do you think? Should I shove his face into the urinal? Or should I stab his butt with the shower head? Or should I shove him into the tumbling bucket? Lian Yu's face was cold. She didn't say anything. Luo Nan's life or death had nothing to do with her. But she had inexplicably sunk into this storm. Not only would she be taken advantage of, she might even face Xie Juanping's wrath afterwards. It wasn't worth it no matter what. The carrier of the first-person view sped up as well. The image shook more and more violently, and Li Xueqing's breathing grew more and more hurried. Luo Nan turned the corner and a few of his puppet thugs turned as well. The first-person view received a report of the surrounding environment. The stream of people ahead was gradually thinning. It was the best time to make a move. Then I'll choose option A. The urinal. No, I want a big one. Li Xueqing cackled strangely.
He impatiently ordered the first-person view to hurry over to the scene as soon as possible. The view turned the corner and the stream of people instantly thinned, allowing Li Xueqing to see things more clearly. His puppets had already gathered together and were swarming into a washroom. Li Xueqing was a bit dissatisfied. "I'll deduct money when I get back. Can't these coarse brothers act a bit more naturally?" An urgent voice transmitted through the communicator before his voice even fell. That fellow jumped out the window and ran. Olds's feet slipped when he was chasing. "He's stuck at the window. We have people outside. We've blocked him." Holy crap. The situation became chaotic beyond control in the blink of an eye. Li Xueqing's expression was stiff at first, but he couldn't restrain his smile in the next moment. Yeah, right. If it wasn't this troublesome fellow, then what would be the point? See, this plot would be interesting, wouldn't it? He actually wasn't in a rush or impatient. He ordered the first-person view to walk out of the changing room building and chase in the direction indicated by the communicator. Li Xueqing was also a fellow who was good at spending money. The campus gangsters he hired were experts in the art of blocking people. Even though he didn't know how Luo Nan discovered that something was wrong, a group of big and tall youths still managed to block Luo Nan in a shadowy corner behind the building after 2 minutes of chasing. By the time Li Xueqing got close, the situation was already nearing its end. The campus gangsters wielding soft rods, knives, stun guns, and other light weapons had fallen to the ground. But they were able to forcefully stab Luo Nan's ribs with electric sparks. Luo Nan convulsed as he bent over. Li Xueqing clapped his hands in laughter as he watched. But in the next moment, he saw Luo Nan, who was about to be submerged in the stream of people, raise his head inexplicably. His gaze actually stared straight at Li Xueqing's position. It was as if Luo Nan was looking at Li Xueqing from a distance. Before Li Xueqing could come back to his senses, a deafening roar rang out behind his first-person view ear. It was the same as exploding next to Li Xueqing's ear. "What the hell are you guys doing?" His body trembled, and his first-person view field of vision instantly transformed into a rapidly magnified lawn. Then it became a field of pitch-black darkness. Monthly votes counted in double. If you feel that this chapter was brilliantly written, support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly votes, 500 crosstalk monthly votes, 10,000 crosstalk monthly votes, 100,000 crosstalk monthly votes to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 33. Genius in 1 second. Remember Love Go? Talk Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The camera shot the ground at close range. The sound recorder and the like were still working. All one could hear was the sound of fists and flesh colliding. Miserable screams rang out one after another. It was noisy and chaotic. In the end, it seemed that a group of people had chased far away. Only then did the scene return to tranquility. Li Xueqing was speechless for a time. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the first-person view wouldn't be able to stand up for a while. He tried to adjust the camera remotely, his mouth still muttering, "If I had known earlier, I would have used the hovering type." The camera suddenly shook greatly. The scene changed. It cut through the building, the lawn, the sky, and the intermittent silhouette of a person. The shaking made one's eyes dizzy. "Steady down." Li Xueqing thought that the first-person view had recovered. He rushed to give the order, but he soon discovered that something was wrong. The silhouette in the shaking camera was too close. Moreover, that ice-cold and calm gaze gradually focused on the camera. How familiar was it? F***CK. Li Xueqing smashed his fist heavily on the armrest. He finally understood what the current situation was. Luo Nan was currently holding the unconscious first-person view, searching for clues. And he soon discovered the problem. The shaking of the camera grew smaller and smaller. Luo Nan's face grew clearer and clearer. Lian Yu's hand grew more and more painful. She lifted her eyelids to look at Li Xueqing, who was within reach. Luo Nan probably noticed her gaze. His ashen face became a bit livelier. The corner of his mouth twitched before he finally squeezed out a smile. "This level seems to be a game. It's over." His clumsy self-mockery and Lian Yu's obedient attitude allowed Li Xueqing to recover a bit of confidence. He raised his voice. "But like I said just now, does he know who did it? If he knows I did it, can his claws reach over? For example, right now, I can say hello to him." Li Xuecheng was about to switch the communicator to an external mode, but halfway through, he saw Luo Nan's seemingly direct gaze. He hesitated. In the end, he laughed and stubbornly replied, "I can also ignore him." He turned off the projector as he spoke, refusing to receive any more information from the other side. He faced Lian Yu's gaze and began to talk incessantly. "Jie Yu, I've understood since I was very young. The power of capital is invisible and omnipotent. Today, this guy was lucky enough to survive the campus gangsters, but tomorrow, he might face the real gangsters. Other than that, I have many other ways to play. His parents, family, relatives, and friends are all part of the strategy. This is the real world, unlike those games, which are affected by poor programming and plot. We can play slowly." Li Xuecheng's words became more and more impassioned, confidence once again filling up his chest. But Lian Yu, who was being embraced by him, only felt that her insides were swaying, filled with a deadly strong acid. Before she could hurt anyone else, it was possible that her 5 viscera and 6 bowels had already been burnt to 1,000 holes. Once Li Xuecheng's frustration was gone, his lust arose. If he didn't put in more effort to get what he wanted when he was hugging a lovely baby, wouldn't he be an idiot? As soon as this thought came to mind, his breathing became hotter, and his mouth went straight to the junction between Lian Yan's neck and collarbone. Lian Jie shuddered violently, trying to dodge, but was firmly held by Li Xuecheng. "Jie Yu, Jie Yu, Jie Yu." Indistinct syllables rolled out from Li Xuecheng's throat, and the heat of his entire body rose. Sky's Fury was a very good place. His previous achievements here could be said to be splendid, and today was another great victory. Bang bang bang. The car window was suddenly knocked. The force wasn't small, and it clearly carried emotions. F*CK, I haven't even shaken it yet. What the hell are you knocking for? Li Xuecheng was furious for a time, and he was even more furious at how the surrounding bodyguards did things. They couldn't even stop a passerby. What if Luo Nan came killing his way? Did he have to personally go and take care of him? He pressed down the car window and was about to curse, but what appeared outside the car window was Xie Juanping's ice-cold face. Li Xuecheng suddenly froze in place. Xie Juanping's gaze swept over the entangled bodies in the car, and the corner of his lips hooked. "Xuecheng, let's talk?" Li Xuecheng got out of the car in a daze. Lian Jie curled up her body, shrinking into the car like a white lotus. Xie Juanping coming over didn't surprise her, because she was the one who secretly sent him a message asking for help. However, Xie Juanping's attitude, from abandoning her in the wee hours of yesterday to sweeping his gaze just now, still made her feel a faint chill in her heart. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to catch this person. If this really was the case, then Li Xuecheng should be a very good candidate, but his warped appearance. Suddenly, a muffled sound came from outside while she was in a dilemma. The sound was mixed with cursing, and it was sent directly into her ears. Lian Jie hastily got up to look, and the scene outside the car caused her eyes to go wide in an instant. Xie Juanping sat on the ground, blood seeping from the corner of his mouth. He was a bit stupefied. Li Xuecheng panted heavily, but he grinned and laughed. It was probably because his emotions were boiling, but he simply tore open his collar, exposing his thin chest. Right now his chest was violently heaving up and down with his breathing. Large patches of blood accumulated and pervaded the air. Ha! Ha! Xie Juanping, I've always found you an eyesore. An idiot who can only sell his laughter without a teleprompter. Li Xuecheng actually walked over as he spoke, sending out another kick. How could Xie Juanping let him succeed again? He blocked the incoming kick and pulled horizontally, forcefully pulling Li Xuecheng down. The two wrestled into a ball just like that. The bodyguards who caught up from behind were all stupefied, but Lian Jie still shouted, "Hurry up and separate them." The scene became even more chaotic. Lian Yu inexplicably felt that this scene was extremely familiar. She thought back somewhat absent-mindedly for a moment before remembering that the conflict between Luo Nan and Li Xuecheng during their detention was more or less like this. Her slender fingers stuck into her hair, but she was unable to straighten out the tangled mess of the situation. In the end, she could only ask the heavens speechlessly, "Has this world gone mad?" The chaotic state of Acumen College had just calmed down at this time. Luo Nan raised his wristband and pressed confirm on the confirmation email sent by the International Science Exploration Society. This task should have been completed 20 minutes ago, but he never had the leisure to do so. This was because he had an intense feeling of being spied on ever since he entered Acumen College. It was like many people were staring at him with fixed eyes. At first, Luonan thought that it was some kind of illusion, but this feeling grew stronger and stronger. In the end, he even heard a low crashing sound. He was very familiar with this sound. It was the heavily chained crow that he visualized. He didn't know why, but it actually took the initiative to connect to reality. It was simply a copy of the Divine Soldier's Warning, scene from a legendary novel. Because of this, Luonan really did pay attention. After a few rounds of observation, he finally discovered that he was being watched by many people. He found an opportunity to jump out the window and escape. Who knew that the other side would bring out such a large force to block him in the end? If it wasn't for a warm-hearted person who saw injustice and came to help, who knew how things would have ended today? Oh, why hasn't the warm-hearted person returned yet? The situation was far too chaotic at the time. Luonan only remembered that the person who came was tall and sturdy. He swept over like a gust of wind, chasing the group of campus hooligans everywhere. He ran, and then he disappeared without a trace. Acumen College was a place where geniuses came forth in large numbers. Luonan shook his head. He saw that there weren't many onlookers in the surroundings, but he took advantage of the fact that his senses were still present to enter the visualization state. It was getting easier and easier for him to enter the fixed space right now. He saw that the heavily chained crow was exceptionally active in the center of the space of nothingness. It coiled and coiled inside and outside the visualization diagram. However, what drew the most attention was the ball of weak, dark red light at the front end of the chain. Within the light, twisted lines formed an abstract symbol. It made Luonan feel quite familiar. The dark red luster became the best hint. Luonan remembered a few seconds later. Wasn't this the outline of the Burning Wraith's main body when it stirred up the sea of spores on the warship? Many lines overlapped with the Burning Wraith when Luonan first drew it, but it was far from being as concise and abstract as it was now. Double monthly votes. If you feel that this chapter was written brilliantly, support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 Crosstalk monthly votes, 500 Crosstalk monthly votes, 10,000 Crosstalk monthly votes, 100,000 Crosstalk monthly votes to be the Alliance Master. Chapter 34. A Genius in 1 Second Remembers Love? Speak Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. The soft and distant sound of an electronic clock rang out. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. The busy and inefficient daytime had once again opened its curtains. Luonan waited for a long time for the warm-hearted person to not arrive. He saw that the few thugs who had been knocked down had more or less recovered. He didn't want to clean up this mess, so he simply turned around and left. He didn't ask who was targeting him in the end. On one hand, he didn't believe that these thugs truly understood the inside story. On the other hand, he looked at the needleless syringe that had fallen to the ground and the special solution inside. He had a rough guess. Luonan sat in the classroom. He didn't listen to a single word of the teacher's lecture in class. The notebook in front of him was spread open. It was an abstract symbol drawn with a fluorescent pen. He utilized the color adjustment function to turn the lines into a dark red color. There was practically no difference from what was displayed in the fixed space. Luonan stared at the symbol on the notebook. It naturally corresponded with the Burning Wraith. This symbol was very marvelous. When Luonan tried to use it as the core to restore the Burning Wraith's concrete image, he inexplicably felt that any stroke would be superfluous. These dozen or so lines intertwined and coiled. They already contained all of the Burning Wraith's special characteristics. They were packed to the brim. There was simply no way to start. Luonan held the pen in his hand, but he didn't. He held it in until his heart was uncomfortable. He simply stopped demanding perfection. He casually sketched the lines. His mind was pondering the reason for the appearance of the abstract symbol. The Burning Wraith had been besieged and exterminated on the warship. This was a matter without a doubt. But the symbol that had appeared on the chains of his own visualization was real. Luonan thought over and over again. There was only one reason. The heavily chained crow had once analyzed the mysteries of the Burning Wraith's core layer when it was controlling the Burning Wraith. Even though the Burning Wraith had been exterminated, its core characteristics still left traces on the chains. It possessed a certain function. Then, The warning of the crisis this morning wasn't from the heavily chained crow. It was from this symbol that originated from the burning wraith. This was because the burning wraith was extremely sensitive to fear, ruthlessness, and other negative emotions. It was able to borrow these emotions for its own use. It was precisely because of its specialization. Luonan also felt that the existence of the symbol was a bit stronger than it was in the beginning after the clash just now. Its strength seemed to be continuously recovering. Could it be that the burning wraith could rely on the symbol to resurrect? Luonan's mind stirred slightly. If this was true, then it couldn't be any better. The battle prowess of the burning wraith had already been completely revealed on the warship. If he had such a protector, why would he need to fear those campus thugs? Even if he went back to the professional association, he would have one more trump card, and it would be much easier. Was there any way to speed up the recovery of the burning wraith? Luonan suddenly felt that the tip of his pen was a bit rough. He looked at the notebook once more and saw that the perfectly fine abstract symbol had already been drawn into a nondescript state. Just like the burning wraith, the comparison was completely wrong. However, he seemed to be able to continue drawing. Luonan's interest was instantly piqued by Luonan's inexplicable inspiration. Luonan did subtraction most of the time when he drew. All of the structure, lines, and shading arrangements were simplified. All this was done for the sake of highlighting the most core characteristics of the material. In his memory, the only time he did addition was when he achieved the breakthrough of "My Heart's a Prison." At that time, he only had an abstract concept, but he didn't have the corresponding image. It was precisely through his continuous sprinkling of inspiration and filling in the details that he built a temporary grand structure, from which he extracted the heavily chained crow. The current situation was a bit similar to yesterday's. He didn't have that much inspiration, but as long as he had a clear general direction, the relevant details and clues were still quite considerable. For example, the needleless syringe. For example, the taser gun. For example, those hoodlums. Luonan continued to look at the clumsy sketch, tinkering here and there. A certain image had been buried deep in the bottom of his heart, out of shape, but now it became more and more clear. What finally appeared on the notebook was a group of blurry buildings, but it was vaguely similar to the regional structure of Acumen College. The drawing was sloppy and blurry. Anyone who looked at it would probably be baffled. They would just treat it as a clumsy and unfinished sketch. But Luonan knew that this drawing was already finished. It was already filled with all of his inspiration and known information. It also revealed the most important answer. In the core region, where the abstract symbol was located, a silhouette of a person was formed in the end. It was a fellow who appeared fierce in appearance but was weak in heart. He used exaggerated body movements to conceal the fear in his heart. Also, Luonan stared fixedly at the drawing. A layer of fiery light seemed to flow above the dark red lines. He was illuminated by the fiery light and became a bit dazed. It was like the feeling of alienation between his mind and body before and after the out-of-body experience. But under this sort of state, the blurry information on the drawing suddenly became clear. The target was approximately 3 kilometers away. It was somewhere southwest of the campus. The corresponding building of the school was the medical department. Luonan was stupefied when the clear information scrambled to jump into his brain. Could it be that this was the technique of a psychic? It was simply like sleepwalking. He randomly pieced together all sorts of elements, but in the end, he was able to obtain a relatively clear answer. But he didn't know how those true psychics worked. Oh, if it was the medical department, Luonan suddenly remembered that he had an appointment for a physical examination yesterday. The time. Fine, it was already past. However, the memories always appeared in a chain. Luonan remembered that when he logged onto the secret star forums yesterday, there was a netizen called Yu Ling who was also affected by the burning wraith. He said that he brought his wife along for a physical examination. Luonan didn't know if he found anything or not. Luonan really wanted to collect information related to the burning wraith. His flexible screen was broken, so he used his wristband to connect to the miniature projector on his desk. He connected to the external network and went to the secret star forums to look at the news. Luonan nearly didn't recognize the forum the moment he logged onto it. The entire forum was filled with a solemn and heavy gray color. There was no other color. The central interface turned into a dark black hole horizon, and the theme was, "The exploration has not ended, but the souls of heroes are not far away. Seoul Concentration Memorial Post.
Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment. He opened the post and the first thing he saw was an excerpt of news.
The general idea was, a couple who lived in the R&D district had gone to the hospital for a checkup yesterday afternoon. Due to an argument, the wife was suspected to have a psychotic episode. She lost her mind and stabbed her husband to death. At the bottom, there were thick, bold, black words. Be alert! Be alert! Be alert! The influence of the nightmare event has far exceeded our expectations. Everyone must be on high alert and think of every possible way to find out the truth. Luo Nan stared at this news all the way until the end of class. The students dispersed and headed to the next class location. Luo Nan also stood up and walked out of the classroom. However, he didn't go in the direction of a classroom. Instead, he went in the direction of the medical department, which was 3 kilometers away. However, not long after he walked out of the classroom, he felt slightly dizzy. Double monthly ticket. If you think this chapter is interesting, please support it. You can also vote for it. 100 cross-court coins monthly ticket, 500 vertical coins, 10,000 cross-court coins, 100,000 cross-court coins to be the leader of the alliance.
Chapter 35. A Genius in 1 Second Remembers Love? Speak Net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Luo Nan stood firm with a single step, enduring the initial period of dizziness. After a while, he tried to move his hands and flexed his toes. Sure enough, he discovered that some of his fingers and joints were sore and numb. His entire body felt as if he had drunk too much alcohol. His reaction sensitivity had inexplicably dropped by a level. Moreover, the state of a spring of ideas and flashes of inspiration were no longer present. It was as if his brain was covered by a layer of membrane. He was drowsy and wanted to sleep. Luo Nan didn't panic. He just sighed. It's still here. Since he was detained on the warship yesterday, he only came out in the wee hours of the morning. It was impossible for him to concoct drugs again. Well, with the state of his drug reserves, there was nothing he could do even if he went home. Therefore, the daily work of concocting drugs that he had painstakingly maintained for nearly 5 years had finally come to an end. The discomfort he felt just now mostly came from the abnormal activity of his nervous system. It could be considered a kind of drug withdrawal reaction. Luo Nan had been mentally prepared for this after the problem with his drug channel. He was also very vigilant when he accelerated his metabolism yesterday. He just didn't expect that this problem would only erupt now that the stage of tight defense and slow defense had already passed. Luo Nan swayed as he walked a few steps. He felt fine. He could barely hold on. But he didn't need to look in the mirror to know that his face was certainly terrible. Well, now he had a legitimate reason to go to the medical department. 20 minutes later, Luo Nan strolled slowly into the medical department. This was the medical department of Acumen College. It was also a rather famous general hospital in Xia City. It was open to the students of the college for free. But before entering, one must first make an appointment online and have their identity verified. Luo Nan's criteria for making an appointment with a doctor was very simple. He would choose the one with the longest queue. After making the appointment, he ignored the information on the appointment form and strolled around the medical department. It looked like he was wandering aimlessly, but his target senses were already extremely clear when he stepped into the main building of the medical department. It should be around 70 meters to the east. That was the inpatient department. Luo Nan could even feel that the target's heart was overflowing with resentment and fear as he got closer and closer. The target's heart was coiled and roasted in an extremely warped manner. There was also an unending stream of distracting emotions mixed in. It was like a barbecue steak that was endlessly sprinkled with seasoning. Why was he thinking this? Right when he was baffled by his own thoughts, his feet began to sway slightly. The shaking soon became violent. The doors and windows of the medical department creaked. Not again! Amidst the commotion, the patients, students, and professors of the medical department rushed out of the buildings like ants moving. In just a few minutes, they filled up the central courtyard. Love, Gobe, Small, Say, Netka. The hospital's emergency escape routes were also opened, ready to evacuate the critically ill patients at any time. But that was all an earthquake could do. The regular earthquake lasted for about half a minute, followed by 2 aftershocks, and then silence. Curses could be heard from all over the courtyard. The seismic activity in Xia City over the past half-month had caused special public places like the hospital to be jittery at the slightest sound. Every time there was an earthquake, they had to evacuate the people according to the regulations, and only then would they start the treatment business. Going back and forth, they could be considered lucky that there were no medical accidents. Luo Nan walked a few steps within the bustling and chaotic stream of people before suddenly coming to a stop. This was because he sensed that his target, who had been in the inpatient department, was moving at high speed. A few seconds later, an electric sightseeing car drove out from the inpatient department on the east side. It passed through the pedestrian walkway, and there was a young man dressed in casual clothes on the car. There were also a few strong men who looked like bodyguards. Luo Nan's gaze locked onto the young man's face. He recognized this person, so it wasn't unexpected at all. Yes, it was Li Xuecheng, who had been suffocated and fainted by Luo Nan's hypnosis technique yesterday. It looked like Li Xuecheng's condition wasn't all that great. His face was bruised and swollen, and his expression was dispirited, but he was also extremely anxious. He chattered endlessly to the bodyguard next to him, and he even fiercely slapped the bodyguard's shoulder and back when he spoke intensely. He gave off the feeling that he was a first-rate neurotic. Li Xuecheng in this state naturally couldn't see the great enemy within the stream of people on the side of the road. Instead, Luo Nan heard his own name from the few words that leaked out. Sure enough, it was this person. Luo Nan cast his gaze over, but a sudden change occurred before he could think of what to do. A dark red glowing mist suddenly soared from Li Xuecheng's body. It coiled and transformed within the interweaving shadows of the medical department building and the trees on the side of the road. In the end, it took the form of a demonic wraith with a human form. No one saw this scene, except for Luo Nan. His pupils contracted slightly. He stood still on the spot, not moving an inch. There was probably no one who was more familiar with this thing than Luo Nan. The burning wraith. It was another burning wraith. So it turned out that there wasn't just one burning wraith. And the most inconceivable thing was that Luo Nan didn't feel astonishment, vigilance, nervousness, and the like in this instant. Instead, it was a feeling of hunger. A feeling of hunger that couldn't be suppressed. The planted grain was ripe. The cooked dish was done. It looked quite delicious. Come, let's eat to our heart's content. Crash! The heavily chained crow vibrated with a cry. Its sound was like a sharp needle that fiercely pierced into the space between Luo Nan's eyebrows. Luo Nan shivered fiercely. Whatever delicacy, whatever hunger, all shattered in an instant. On the contrary, this brand new burning wraith before his eyes radiated a scorching power from the mental plane. It came pouring down towards Luo Nan. This power was clearly filled with hunger and greed. The wraith flew and pounced down towards Luo Nan. Luo Nan still didn't move an inch. He was deep in thought. The intense instinct of greed that came from this burning wraith was declaring something to him. At the same time, he was stimulated by the rapidly approaching threat. The rattling of the chains resounded in his mind, layer upon layer. The power that came from the body-mind format accumulated endlessly through this form until it reached a certain upper limit. In the next moment, the boundary between reality and illusion was torn apart noiselessly. The heavily chained crow leaped out from the space between Luo Nan's eyebrows. It collided head-on with the pouncing burning wraith and struck inside in an instant. Bas! A miserable shriek that only existed on the mental plane shone into reality for an instant. The hundreds of doctors, nurses, students, and patients all had a moment of absent-mindedness. But soon, this fuzzy feeling disappeared without a trace. This was because the abstract symbol at the front of the heavily chained crow lit up with a lustrous radiance. The dark red radiance illuminated the originally dark interior of the burning wraith and released some sort of power. It transformed into a rapidly contracting whirlpool in an instant. The power of the whirlpool was extremely powerful. In the blink of an eye, this new understanding of the burning wraith no longer took shape. A large portion of its body was sucked into the abstract symbol by the whirlpool, increasing the brightness of the symbol. There was also a small portion that simply collapsed and dissipated in the void. The bodyguards' cries of alarm rang out from the electric sightseeing bus that just brushed past them at practically the same time. Li Xuecheng, who had just been violently lashing out, suddenly fainted in the bus. He was unconscious. A small commotion appeared in the courtyard.
Li Xueqing was hastily carried off the bus by the bodyguards and laid flat on the lawn to the side. His pupils were rolled back and he was foaming at the mouth. His face was ashen like a corpse. Luo Nan turned his eyes to see the life force that belonged to Li Xueqing. It was like the floodgates had been opened and a flood was released. A large amount of it leaked outwards. It transformed into wisps of light smoke on a level that the naked eye couldn't detect. It followed the collapsing burning wraith and was drawn into the void vortex. Luo Nan's eyebrows locked tightly. His mind stirred slightly and the heavily chained crow retracted. The dark red abstract symbol also retracted into the space between his eyebrows. The void vortex disappeared. The process of Li Xueqing's life force leaking out came to a screeching halt, but he had already sunk into a state of deep unconsciousness. Luo Nan stared at the unconscious Li Xueqing on the lawn with a grave expression. Victory was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, but he didn't feel happy at all. Luo Nan shifted his gaze away from Li Xueqing's body after a moment. He turned towards the nearby crowd. Some people were watching curiously. Some people shot a glance and then completely ignored him. There were also doctors and nurses who rushed over. What couldn't happen in the hospital? Everything was a change in reality that people could understand. But who knew that on a plane that they couldn't touch, there were incorporeal wraith arrogantly coming and going, eroding people's hearts and sucking away their essence and energy. Luo Nan was one. Li Xueqing was another. Perhaps, the soul couple that had a human tragedy happen were also of this type. How many more? Just how many demons had been released from that roar in the R&D district? And how many had taken form and plotted to take human lives like this? Not only that, but there was clearly competition and devouring relationships between the burning wraith. They formed a faintly discernible web of a food chain. Luo Nan stared blankly at the clamoring courtyard. Is this still the world I know? Double monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant, then support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the Alliance Master. Chapter 36. Genius 1 second. Remember love. Go? Speak, net. Providing you with wonderful novels to read. The office of the Xia City branch of the International Science Exploration Association was located on the 18th floor of the Shangding Triplex office building in the Lilan district of Xia City. The location was a bit lower, only 50 meters above the ground. It was the limit of low-altitude public transportation for civilians. However, the rental prices for the floors below were quite cheap. The Wilderness Explorers branch of the association rented all the space from the 1st to the 17th floor in one breath. They remodeled and opened up many spacious areas for the activities of the members. From the perspective of the ordinary employees working in the association, the Wilderness Explorers were a bunch of lunatics who had money but nowhere to spend it. They could rent an excellent location in the central business district with the money for remodeling. They could do whatever they wanted. Why did they have to spend so much energy remodeling while the vast majority of the facilities were still unused? The most typical example was the luxurious round conference room on the bottom 3 floors. It could accommodate over 1,000 people discussing business here, but it had been used less than 10 times in the 10 years since it was built. Today, the conference room finally opened once more. Several hundred people entered one after another. The employees of the association, who usually had nothing better to do, were stupefied. How could Xia City have this many wilderness explorers? The employees couldn't see the organizational materials of the conference. They didn't know the contents of the conference, the time schedule, and so on. They just felt that the conference was very long. They went in the morning. It was past lunchtime, but it still didn't end. No one came out to avoid the earthquake in the middle. Speaking of earthquakes, the white-collar workers working nearby discovered that the number of earthquakes they felt seemed to be much more than the number of earthquakes reported by the Earthquake Bureau. They felt at least 10 or 20 earthquakes. Even so, the wilderness explorers still calmly held the conference. They really were brave. September 28, 2096, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The interior of the round conference room was dim. A small half of the lighting equipment that simulated skylight had been turned on all year round. The shadow that spread out on a large scale covered the messy conference room and seeped into the hearts of the participants. Zhang Yingying gently grasped Susan's plump hand. The body temperature of the two combined
causing the chill in the dusky darkness to slightly retreat. Susan was muttering some words that no one could understand. The injury on her shoulder was still faintly aching. 2 centimeters more and her carotid artery would have been torn. Ouyang Chen, the president of the Xia City branch of the Wilderness Explorers Association, stood on the podium in the center of the conference room. He wore a well-ironed suit, a bow tie, and a pair of vintage glasses. He looked like a refined scholar. He looked around at the faintly discernible faces under the dim light and calmly said, "Now, the identification is over." There were 429 people in the meeting, and 420 people participated in the final meeting. The 9 people who had been deducted had already become corpses. Some of their corpses could not even be found. The air in the conference room had frozen. I will be the one to report the relevant situation in this meeting. I have also invited Quantum Corporation's Xia City Area Executive Director, Mr. Hu Yuli, to give an in-depth explanation. At the side of the podium, Mr. Hu Yuli, who was also a powerful businessman, was pale. He tried his best to remain calm and nodded slightly to all sides. This was all he could do. Ouyang Chen adjusted the frame of his glasses and began his speech. The projector behind him began to operate at the same time, displaying the ruins of the R&D area. First of all, a brief explanation. Quantum Corporation, the government, and the military have jointly conducted research on the mutant in the Xia City R&D area's mutant laboratory. This project has been going on for 2 years now. And roughly half a month ago, Quantum Corporation switched the test subject. This is a special species. It is a rarely seen parasitic state of the dark side of life form towards the mutant. Its code name is human-faced arachnid. A large number of pictures flashed on the projection. They were all related files that had been preserved in the laboratory. The participants stared coldly at all of this and continued to listen. Yesterday, which is September 27th, around 5:13 in the morning, a facility operator in the laboratory was controlled by the Darksider lifeform. He forcefully destroyed the power supply. And before the backup power supply was activated, the Darksider lifeform drove the mutant in an attempt to escape the laboratory. Quantum Corporation carried out a control of the situation. At 5:19, the mutant was killed. The Darksider lifeform separated from its host. At 5:24, Quantum Corporation killed the Darksider lifeform. But before this, the Darksider lifeform used a method that we are still unable to understand to release some sort of virus. Ouyang Chen paused and repeated his emphasis. Virus. For now, we can only say this. According to statistics, with Quantum Corporation's laboratory in the R&D area as the center, the virus has spread as far as 520 kilometers away. It has covered the entire metropolitan area of Xia City and all of the satellite cities. The center has a radius of 10 kilometers. That is the core area of the virus infection. The number of people infected is the greatest. Preliminary statistics show that over 70% of the infected are mainly laboratory personnel and some residents. Beyond 10 kilometers, the rate of infection rapidly drops. According to preliminary research statistics, the virus currently has 3 characteristics. First, outside of the core area, the rate of infection among the general populace isn't high. We have yet to discover a case. But for ability users, it is very bad. The current rate is 9 out of 1,000. I believe that it should be related to the method of transmission. After all, ability users are far more sensitive than ordinary people. The atmosphere in the conference room became even more oppressive. This 9 out of 1,000 infection rate was calculated using human lives. Today's participants made up nearly half of the registered personnel. And in the identification just now, there were 4 infected people who caused the other 5 casualties. Second, there are many carriers. The rate of infection isn't high. In order to activate this virus, special conditions are needed. An intense change in mood, especially a negative mood, is the most obvious cause. According to Quantum Corporation's internal experiment report, the survival time of the virus in the human body is approximately between 8 to 18 hours. During this time, if the virus is maintained in a calm state, then it will be thoroughly annihilated. But if there is a negative mood, then the survival time will be greatly extended. Moreover, there is an extremely high probability of activation. The concrete data has yet to be determined. Third, everyone has seen it just now.
The activated virus will absorb the energy of the host's blood and energy, transforming into a Darksider life form. And these Darksider life forms will devour each other, fuse, and continuously grow stronger. Every time they grow stronger, their form and power level will draw closer to their emitter. Ouyang Chen tossed aside the explanation of the situation and turned to look at Hu Yuli. His gaze was cold and clear behind his flat glasses. Therefore, we must ask, is that human-faced arachnid truly dead? When these Darksider life forms absorb enough nutrients and devour and fuse, does this represent a new life for it? Does Quantum Corporation have any research that supports or touches upon this situation? Hu Yuli could only shake his head. The current research hasn't gone deep enough. We really don't understand. He had forcefully evaded Ouyang Chen's question, but it didn't mean that he had passed the test. Ouyang Chen's question was just the beginning. Soon, a voice came from within the conference room. What's the matter with the news of the stolen medicine? This is completely different from the rumors that you guys released before. Double monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant, then support me a bit. You can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk coins monthly vote, 500 crosstalk coins monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk coins, 100000 crosstalk coins. Alliance Master. Chapter 37. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Talk. Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Hu Yuli had a bitter smile on his face. We really did report that the laboratory drugs were stolen, but that was done by staff members taking advantage of the chaos. We didn't realize the gravity of the situation at first and focused our attention on searching for the drugs. Reality has proven that this direction was completely wrong. Really? Zhang Yingying grimaced in pain after accidentally twisting her wound below the stage. However, she didn't believe Quantum Corporation's words so easily. On one hand, she trusted her own intelligence channels. On the other hand, she didn't trust Quantum Corporation's usual methods. She spoke to Susan in a low voice. These people have always been cold and aloof. They rely on the fact that they have burners and the deep blue platform in their hands. They've always ignored us, but today they've kowtowed to the ground. Susan nodded and then shook her head. Let's see what the president says. Hu Yuli's explanation certainly wouldn't convince the crowd. The repeated doubts from below the stage made this big shot of business sweat. He was gradually overwhelmed. At this time, Ouyang Chen lightly slapped the stage. The sound wasn't loud, but it made the entire venue quickly quiet down. Everyone, since we don't believe in Quantum Corporation's explanation, then let's not waste time on it. If you want an answer, then go find it yourself. Since Quantum Corporation wishes for the society to intervene in this matter and help them deal with the spread of the virus, then they should display a corresponding sincerity. Of course. Hu Yuli didn't care what the request was. He would first agree to it. Ouyang Chen gazed below the stage and calmly said, the society's activities aren't compulsory. Organizing activities requires the approval of over half of the members. Then right now, I'll talk about the reasons for supporting the activities. It's very simple. According to reliable information, this human-faced arachnid was the first living experimental material that was transported out of that door. There weren't many people below the stage who reacted, door? Which door? On the other hand, Hu Yuli's pupils instantly dilated. His entire body rose up, but just as his butt left his seat, Ouyang Chen's cold gaze swept over him, extinguishing his sudden impulse. He also paralyzed in his seat, unable to get up again. It was also at this time that the attendees finally digested the most crucial information. Suddenly, a rumble exploded. Someone jumped up and asked in a loud voice, Ouyang, which door are you talking about? Ouyang Chen adjusted his glasses again. The origin of the mutants, the starting point of the new era. Thanks to Quantum Holdings, we can finally lock onto the door that we've always suspected but never confirmed. Where? He slapped his cheeks to raise his spirits and slowly got off the trolley. Right now it was 3:40 in the afternoon. It was time for club activities. Luo Nan's destination was the Precision Electronics Interest Society. The Precision Electronics Interest Society invited experts from various electronics manufacturing companies to conduct maintenance teaching. It was also a heaven for enthusiasts. Luo Nan's goal was naturally to repair the damaged flexible e-ink screen. He was used to getting damaged tools. He felt restricted everywhere. It was even worse than the withdrawal reaction. However, his luck seemed to have been used up during the psychic drawing in the morning. The Precision Electronics Interest Society had already made the maintenance teaching business soar. Business was booming. Today they invited a super expert in the industry. Maintenance workers, enthusiasts, and help seekers filled the spacious business hall to the brim. He squeezed through the crowd for 20 minutes just to get a reservation number. In the end, Luo Nan really couldn't stand the crowded flow of people in the hall. He hid outside and breathed in the fresh air. But the dizziness and excessively keen senses invaded him. The afternoon sun pierced through the shade of the trees and fell on Luo Nan's face. This was the first time he felt that the autumn sun was actually this hot. Half of his cheeks were practically burning. He could even smell the burnt smell of roasted flesh. This was, without a doubt, an illusion. Luo Nan stopped at the side of the road and stood like a nail. His lips slightly squirmed as the 16 words of mantra flowed from his mouth to his heart. They flowed like an icy spring, gradually washing away and submerging his blurred and dazed thoughts. A shadow streaked across his half-lidded eyelids just as he was feeling better. Luo Nan suddenly opened his eyes, startling the waving person. The waving person took half a step back and lowered his elbow, blocking between the two people. The person realized that he had overreacted after finishing his action. He laughed awkwardly. "Classmate, are you all right?" Double monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant. Support me a bit, you can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 38. A Genius in a Second. Remember love? This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. Actually, Luo Nan's vision was blurry for 2 seconds after he lifted his eyelids. When he completely recovered, he saw a wall. The person in front of him was tall and strong. He was taller than Luo Nan by a full head. His back just happened to block the sunlight, causing his entire face to be hidden in the shadows. It was a bit frightening to suddenly see him. Looking at him from a different angle, this person's muscular body was supported by a rather simple and honest face. He also had the youthfulness of a student. Not even a few strands of hair grew on his face. The way he laughed with his mouth wide open was quite likable. Luo Nan recalled a bit and knew that his deadpan face and the image of him muttering to himself were too eye-catching. This person waved his hand to probe him. It was indeed out of good intentions. He responded with a smile. "It's nothing. I was just a bit distracted." Distracted? The person immediately revealed a Shanghai smile that said, "You may be stubborn, but we're both men. I understand." He then introduced himself. "It's good that you're fine. I'm Xuelei. I'm from the River Wu district. 10th grade. Luo Nan. I'm also from the River Wu district. 10th grade. Ha! You're also in the River Wu district? I'm on Twin River Road. Where are you?" "Blue Bay Community. I just moved there not too long ago." "That's not too far. What a coincidence." Xuelei clapped his hands and laughed heartily. "It's fate for us to meet on different paths. You can just call me Leister." This must be the path of chivalry. Luo Nan choked on the person's Wuxia style of speech. He didn't know if it was intentional or not. He was actually speechless for a time. However, Xuelei's big mouth was completely capable of holding up the situation. "I'll just call you Nanster. Fate is fate. I actually walked past you just now. I was just listening to the resonance of your breathing. It hummed like you were chanting. It was like breathing, but it wasn't. I saw your expression. I'm afraid something went wrong with your training. Hey, it's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine." Luo Nan's mind stirred when he heard the words breathing, training, and so on. He sized up Xuelei's body. He noticed that what Xuelei was wearing was actually a little strange. It looked like the training clothes of a fitness center. It was light gray in color, and the logo on the left side of his chest was a 3-legged cauldron. It was very memorable. Xuelei noticed where Luo Nan's gaze was directed and puffed out his chest. "This is the training uniform of our dojo. Not bad, right?" "Ah. It's you?" Luonan didn't answer the question. It was probably because a certain memory had surged up from the bottom of his heart. The burly figure and the gray coat looked familiar no matter how he looked at it. Shuelei didn't understand.
You know me?
Luonan reminded him, this morning, outside the main changing room in the South 2 district.
It's you.
Shuelei also recognized Luonan, but his reaction was very odd. He first shot a glance behind Luonan before speaking in a low voice. You should be fine. That group of people should have dispersed. Yes. Many thanks for lending a helping hand. Luonan also expressed his thanks in the style of the chivalrous path. Sure enough, the burly classmate in front of him was the warm-hearted person who helped him out this morning. In the huge campus that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people, the chances of them meeting again were too small. It's nothing. It's nothing. I just happened to be passing by. Shuelei waved his hand over and over, but he didn't say more than 2 sentences. His face was full of excitement. Nanster, I can see that your body is a bit weak, but your hands are quite nimble. You're very particular about where you hit. Have you practiced before? Shuelei even gesticulated as he spoke. He was just short of touching Luonan's body to demonstrate. Luonan didn't know if he should block it or not. A voice suddenly called out from behind Shuelei at this time. Leister, what are you doing? Shuelei's body froze when he heard this. He withdrew his hands with a swish and put on a smile. Then he turned his head. Xiaolin, I know a classmate here. A tall and skinny girl walked over a few seconds later. She naturally hooked her arm around Shuelei's crook, making their relationship clear. Not to mention anything else, their sizes were quite compatible. Shuelei promptly introduced them. This is my girlfriend, Chen Xiaolin. She's 1 year older than us. This is Luonan. He also lives in the River Wu district, around Blue Bay. Luonan smiled and nodded, not saying much. Chen Xiaolin had short and thin hair. She wore jeans paired with a simple white top. She looked very straightforward and efficient. The outline of her face was extremely clear. The corners of her eyes were slightly raised, giving her a shrewd and fierce look. It was easy to tell who was stronger and who was weaker compared to the simple and honest Shuelei. However, Chen Xiaolin was extremely mellow when it came to dealing with people. She called Luonan Jr. and greeted him with a smile. She grasped her attitude extremely well. Luonan saw that the two were together, so he didn't want to disturb them any further. He prepared to leave, but he certainly had to solemnly thank Shuelei for his kindness in helping him. About this morning. Luonan had just opened his mouth when Shuelei gave him a wild look. Luonan was stunned for a moment. He then saw Chen Xiaolin frown to the side. He knew that there was some hindrance involved. It wasn't suitable to speak openly. He thought for a bit and simply extended his hand. You guys go do what you need to do. Leister, let's add each other as friends. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Shuelei chuckled as he extended his hand and touched Luonan's wristband. Buzz buzz buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. Their wristbands vibrated at practically the same time the moment they touched. The momentum was astonishing. Oh my! Twin swords harmonize. Hey! Shuelei cried out in surprise. In the end, he let out a miserable groan as Chen Xiaolin fiercely pinched him at the waist. Luonan confirmed that this was a high level of authority transmission of information. The notification vibrated. He raised his wrist to confirm. The sender was the professional advisor of the 10th years, Li Mingda. He wanted Luonan to come to his office at 5. It was probably because of yesterday's truancy and absence from exams. Shuelei finally reacted to the situation. After confirming the information, he grimaced in pain. Nothing good can come out of a summons from Elder Mingda. Luonan raised his head to look at him. You too. Shuelei blinked his eyes. What? After a moment of stupefaction, Shuelei immediately came to a sudden realization. He looked at Luonan again with the meaning of fellow Taoist. You didn't join a society either? Luonan immediately confirmed that his previous judgment was slightly off. Right now, Shuelei was already complaining to himself. He spread his hands. I really want to join a society, but I've gone to those martial arts clubs and fitness clubs. They're far worse than our Daoguan. It's really boring. All right, let's go together?
My time is 5 o'clock. Shuelei was overjoyed. I'm also at 5 o'clock. Let's say we're fated.
Let's go together.
Chen Xiaolin thought of something to the side. She asked Luonan, "You didn't join a society. So you're a new student who just got into the school?" Luonan nodded in response. Chen Xiaolin's eyes suddenly lit up. "Junior, which high school did you go to? Like Leicester? The River Wu Experimental School?" "No, I went to 6th High. Xia City 6th High? A famous school. But it's quite far from the River Wu district. I used to live in the Nade district. I only moved to the River Wu district after I got into Acumen College." Nade district? That's already the core district. The houses there are all sky-high prices. It's all right. Luonan was a bit unable to handle Chen Xiaolin's questioning of his family's assets. He wanted to retreat even more. But Chen Xiaolin already smiled and suggested, "It's almost 4 o'clock right now. With Advisor Li waiting, we can't do anything. Why don't we go sit at the cold drink shop? You guys can go when it's time?" Shuelei naturally agreed. Luonan looked at Shuelei and found it hard to refuse. He nodded and agreed. Double the monthly vote if you think this chapter is brilliant. Support me a bit, you can also vote for me. 100 crosstalk monthly vote, 500 crosstalk monthly vote, 10,000 crosstalk monthly vote, 100,000 crosstalk monthly vote to be the leader of the alliance. Chapter 39. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. There was a campus shopping mall nearby, and the leisure area inside was famous for its snacks and cold drinks. Classes had already ended, but it was still club activity time, so there were relatively fewer people. At least, it was not as crowded as the Precision Electronics Interest Club. Luonan was still in the uncomfortable withdrawal period right now. He would avoid cold drinks and other stimulating foods if he could. However, he understood that Chen Xiaolin didn't invite him to sit down for a chat just to enjoy her delicious food. Sure enough, as soon as the service robot placed the snack platter on the table, Chen Xiaolin said to Shuelei, "Consultantly called you over this time. I won't mention anything else, but as long as it's related to the club, just deal with it casually. Don't say or agree to any substantive promises or operations." Shuelei was confused. "What do you mean?" Luonan knew that Chen Xiaolin's words were directed at him. However, this was not a good time to say anything. He raised his head and listened attentively. When Chen Xiaolin faced Shuelei, some words were easier to say. "Of course it's because I'm afraid you'll be fooled. The school's clubs are too complicated. It's a three-way game between the school, the teachers, and the students. If you don't understand the situation, it'll be easy for you to suffer losses." She knew that she wouldn't be able to convince him after saying all this, so she decided to try to move his emotions instead. "Anyway, I won't harm you, right?" Shuelei could only nod. Chen Xiaolin turned to face Luonan. "Junior, you need to know yourself and your enemy in everything. You need to plan before you make a move. Don't you agree?" Luonan could only smile. Chen Xiaolin immediately followed up by saying, "Junior, you've been here for nearly a month. You should know that Acumen College is essentially an experimental school. It's a combination of East and West. The atmosphere and methods are all different from previous schools. Many people who come here are more or less not used to it. This requires everyone to help and coordinate with each other. Actually, I suggest that you join the Mutual Aid Association." Mutual Aid Association? This school's student council has specially set up a mutual aid organization for students like you and Shuelei who are halfway into the school. The goal is to allow everyone to adapt to Acumen College's ecology and atmosphere as quickly as possible. There are many seniors in there who can impart their experiences to me and help me solve my problems.
Really?
Luonan was a bit embarrassed. He didn't really want to get involved in this sort of thing. Chen Xiaolin, on the other hand, was very enthusiastic. "Let's not talk about anything else. Tonight is the annual Mutual Assistance Buffet Party. Many seniors will be coming. Some of them have been in the academy for more than 7 years and are about to graduate. They have a lot of experience. Chatting when you have nothing to do can expand your network. Chatting when you have something to do can solve a lot of problems. Junior brother,
You really shouldn't miss this opportunity. Luo student, you can't just by chatting. We can you can't you can you want. Right when Luo Nan was thinking about how to refuse, his wristband vibrated slightly. The reservation number of the Precision Electronics Interest Society was already a reminder. Luo Nan let out a breath of relief and raised his wrist. Senior, Lon Luo for my turn.
We should I my turn. We later. Yi yi. Chen Shi. Chen Shi sister. Shi Feng Dong. You. He you. Chen. You. You time. You. Brother. You.
Li. Shuelei reminded him from behind. Don't forget to go to Elder Mingda's place later. Luo Nan tossed the matter of the Mutual Help Society to the back of his mind and hurried back to the Precision Electronics Interest Society. Not long after, his number was called. He followed the small and exquisite guiding ball to the maintenance area. This place was much quieter than the lobby. He could see a few young students behind the maintenance desk. They were surrounding a middle-aged technician, discussing some problems. Someone saw Luo Nan come in and looked at the reservation form. The flexible e-ink screen was damaged by external forces. The repair costs are high. It may not be completely restored. It's more appropriate to find a manufacturer to replace it. Luo Nan sat in front of the desk and whispered, "It's a piece of equipment." His words made over half of the people turn their heads. The person who was looking at the reservation form laughed. "It's amazing to be able to do something with the flexible e-ink screen. Why don't you fix it yourself? I see that this screen is from 5 years ago. It's the perfect time to upgrade it." Luo Nan hesitated for a moment before speaking. "That person isn't here anymore."
"Oh, that's a pity." The middle-aged technician raised his head at this time. He looked like a very amiable person. He laughed. "Then let's take a look. If you have any good ideas, let's compare them." "Thank you, teacher." Luo Nan nodded in thanks. He removed the flexible e-ink screen from his notebook and passed it to the back of the maintenance desk. The middle-aged technician glanced at it and his eyes lit up a bit. "Jellyfish board? This isn't easy to do. Many external modules don't have space. Did they move a lot inside?" "Dismantle the machine. Dismantle the machine. Worker Zhai, you do it yourself." The students were all raring to go. Worker Zhai didn't decline. After all, a group of students who hadn't graduated had no idea how to dismantle a highly integrated electronic device like the flexible e-ink screen. Dismantling a flexible e-ink screen with a thickness of only 2 mm was definitely a job that required meticulous patience. Worker Zhai's gentle temperament was just right. As he dismantled the screen, he casually explained the main points and difficulties of dismantling the screen to the students. He explained the profound in simple terms. Even Luo Nan, who didn't know a thing about this, had some basic concepts as he listened. But as the dismantling progressed, Worker Zhai gradually stopped talking. His expression became more and more unsightly. He wasn't the only one. A few students saw that something was wrong. They began to whisper to each other. Worker Zhai really was patient. He spent a full half an hour to dismantle the entire flexible e-ink screen into 2 pieces, completely revealing the internal structure. Only then did he stop. At this time, the inspection equipment of the control desk naturally cut in and scanned the situation of each component. As the equipment displayed all sorts of data, the buzzing sounds of discussion grew louder. Finally, the student who took the job first couldn't help but say to Luo Nan, "Hey buddy, you didn't come here on purpose to mess things up, right?" Luo Nan was stunned. He didn't understand what Worker Zhai meant at all. "This jellyfish screen of yours hasn't moved a lot." "It hasn't moved at all." "Fine, you added a battery module, but the processor, the storage module, the signal transceiver module, and the sensor are all missing. Do you normally use this board as a mirror?" "Impossible." Even though Luo Nan was a noob in electronics, he knew that the flexible screen was purely for decoration without a processor and storage module. It couldn't even be used as a mirror. Of course this was impossible. He had been using it just fine yesterday. All sorts of software applications were unhindered. He had even drawn 2 sketches. How could it be for decoration? The problem was, there was a group of students in front of him. There was also a technical expert like Worker Zhai. Was there a need to lie to him?
and the results on the inspection equipment were crystal clear. There was no falsehood whatsoever. Luo Nan was truly at a loss when faced with a dozen unfriendly gazes.
You guys make way.
Worker Zhai, who had been silent all this time, suddenly indicated to the students blocking the control desk to make way. He waited for the people in front of the control desk to clear out. Then he controlled the mechanical arm and carefully operated behind the open jellyfish screen. Several seconds later, a long thread like a spider's web was slowly pulled out from the twisting circuit. It swayed slightly with the breathing of the surrounding people.
Chapter 40. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go?
Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The long wire was actually not too long, about 7 or 8 centimeters, but compared to the fine circuit, it naturally felt different.
Love, Gobe, small, say, Netku. As the long thread was pulled out, the attention of the group of students naturally shifted.
Someone asked, "What is this?"
Metal? It seems to be quite resilient. How did you get in? Did it exist before? Worker Zhai did not give an answer to the above question.
As he looked at the actual object, he also looked at the scanning results of the machine.
A moment later, he put on a thin film glove and removed the long thread from the mechanical arm. The weight isn't right. It's quite heavy. As he spoke, Worker Zhai prepared to place the long thread on an electronic scale at the side to weigh it. The group of students curiously gathered around him. Wait a moment. Luo Nan suddenly spoke. Everyone's gazes shifted to his face, and he lowered his head slightly. I'm sorry. I won't repair it. His words instantly stirred up a hornet's nest. At the maintenance station, the club members were agitated. You did it on purpose, didn't you?
F***CK. He's really here to cause trouble?
What grade are you in? I've already lifted the lid, and you're still playing this game? Do you think precision electronics is a pushover? Luo Nan's expression didn't change. He repeated his previous words. I'm sorry. I've decided not to fix it. On one side were boiling emotions, and on the other side was a stiff attitude. The two sides collided, and it seemed like they were about to intensify.
After a moment of shock, Worker Zhai stepped forward to smooth things over.
If you don't want to fix it, then don't fix it. After all, it's someone else's stuff. Love, Gobe, small, say, Netku. I don't think this student is going to make fun of us. Anyway, I'm sure he won't be short of labor fees. Worker Zhai tried to lighten his mood by cracking a cold joke, but no one supported him. Luo Nan gave thanks from the bottom of his heart. He bowed once more. Thank you, Worker Zhai. I'm sorry about today. Worker Zhai was all smiles as he tried his best to calm the members around him. All right, I'll restore the machine first. It didn't take long.
However, there are some tricks in it.
You guys have to pay attention.
Luo Nan really admired this man's concern, but he had no choice but to remind him, Worker Zhai, that thread.
Worker Zhai immediately understood and chuckled. To be honest, I really don't know where to put this thing. He took out a membrane bag that was used to seal small components. He placed the long wire inside before handing it over to Luo Nan. Luo Nan didn't know how many times he had expressed his thanks. He carefully extended his hand to receive it. More than a dozen cold eyes fell on him. He had undoubtedly become the most unpopular person in the Precision Electronics Interest Club. Luo Nan didn't care about this at all. At this very moment, there was only this thin thread in his eyes. 10 minutes later, Luo Nan walked out of the society's main hall. He held his notebook in one hand and the plastic bag in the other. He was a bit absent-minded. He actually didn't know which side was heavier.
The sun gradually slanting to the west fell on his body.
It was warm, like a gentle breeze. Luo Nan thought for a moment and raised his hand, letting the membrane seal receive the illumination of the sunlight. He narrowed his eyes. If he didn't do that, he might even be burned by the brilliant flowing lightning. The source of electricity was on a long line. Of course, it could also be said that the long line existed in a bright and blazing electric light. However, not a single person in the surroundings reacted strangely. Even if they noticed this side, it was because of Luo Nan's inexplicable posture. This electric light was like a burning wraith. It was like the long ribbon of cloud light that curled around Zhang Yingying's body.
It only appeared on a mysterious and unfathomable level. Ordinary people couldn't see it, they couldn't hear it, and they couldn't detect it. Only in Luonan's eyes was it brilliant and dazzling. Luonan lowered his arm and his 5 fingers clenched together. He nearly broke the membrane seal. But the more he did this, the more he could feel the marvelous texture that came from the long line. It was completely different from its slender form. It was such a marvelous object that was hidden deep within the flexible e-ink screen. It was silent and there were no clues or hints, just like its previous owner. Such an inconceivable object came from that coward. Did he make it? Or did he obtain it through some channel? Why did he hide it in the flexible e-ink screen and send it back? Why wasn't there a hint at all? That coward. What in the world was he planning? Luonan's mind was in complete chaos. His mind was in a trance. He took a step forward and suddenly felt his knees go soft. He couldn't maintain his balance and suddenly fell forward. Oh my! Are you okay? Just as Luonan was about to fall, Xuelei caught up from behind and supported him. His face was filled with worry and doubt. What's wrong? I called you a few times just now, but you didn't respond. Did something go wrong? Only now did Luonan remember that Xuelei was still waiting for him to go to the grade advisor's office. What time is it? 4:50. It's this late. Luonan was shocked at first, but then he remembered that he had stayed at the maintenance center for at least 40 minutes. Wasn't it almost time? Fortunately, Xuelei was stubborn and had been waiting for him all this time. Then let's hurry up and go. Luonan took the membrane seal with the long needle and stuffed it into the cover of his notebook. He put it aside for now. He needed to calm down and organize his thoughts. Xuelei had been anxious to the point of hopping. But when he saw Luonan's body's performance, his center of gravity naturally shifted. I say, Nanster. Your body is a bit weak. You probably lack exercise normally. In my opinion, if you come to our Daoguan and train for a few months, you'll absolutely make a huge difference. Luonan stopped the campus trolley and pulled Xuelei aboard. At the same time, he used his wristband to design the shortest route to the grade advisor's office. His mouth smoothly replied, I have time. Then it's a deal. Luonan suddenly understood why Xuelei and Chen Xiaolin were a couple. The route was planned properly and with a bit of luck, Luonan and Xuelei practically stepped on the dot and entered the grade advisor's office. There weren't many freshmen who entered the school halfway through. There were even fewer who hadn't joined a society by the end of the month. However, the office was packed to the brim with a dozen or so people. Luonan and Xuelei were the last to enter. They originally wanted to hide in the back of the crowd, but Xuelei's size was truly eye-catching among the group of 15 and 16-year-old youths. Even Luonan was implicated. The last to arrive. Come to the front. The grade advisor, Li Mingde, was known as the Old Immortal. He was nearly 70 years old. He had pretty much reached the age of retirement. His body was maintained quite well. He was tall and thin with a sage-like appearance. He was usually reserved in speech and manner. He looked hard to get close to. Reality proved that this person was indeed hard to get along with. There was a slight commotion in the crowd. Luonan and Xuelei helplessly acted as targets and moved to the very front. Li Mingde used a stern gaze to cut Luonan and Xuelei's faces before looking at the others. This move of killing the chicken to warn the monkeys was indeed effective. The originally somewhat undisciplined students all tightened their bodies one by one, acting obedient. Acumen College didn't have a class teacher for the 7th grade and above due to the implementation of the class system. Instead, they arranged for professional advisors to be responsible for the students' daily lives, psychological construction, and so on. It looked quite fashionable, but in reality, a considerable portion of the advisors still carried out the functions of the discipline master. They were in charge of discipline, evaluation, and so on. Li Mingde was a typical representative. This person acted as if he was in a class. He first called out names and confirmed that everyone was present. Only then did he begin with a lecture. You all know why I called you here, right? Everyone was silent. No one spoke. Chapter 41. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. Li Mingde's face darkened. Acumen College's society life is very important. It's fine if you didn't understand before, but after the society promotion conference on the 24th, can you still not understand? During the meeting, I told all of you to take this seriously and find a club that you like as soon as possible. Apply to join it and avoid having your credits deducted. After so many days, most of the 100 or so participants have come up with a result, but what about you? He knocked on the table, and the sensor activated a simple AR device, displaying a list of information. Shui Lei joined the traditional martial arts club on the 25th, then quit? Their skills are too crude. Shui Lei tried to explain, but Li Mingde glared at him fiercely. Luo Nan also cast a glance. He felt deep admiration. Then it was his turn. And you, Luo Nan? You said that you would participate in the interview for the Mystic Arts Research Society on the 27th, but you didn't go. He skipped classes for the entire day. Luo Nan opened his mouth, wanting to explain, but in the end he shut his mouth. He just stood there quietly. One by one, Li Mingde pointed out the other people's failed or even blank club experience. In the end he sneered. You guys are very calm. I've already said it during the club promotion meeting. According to the school's rules, the total credit for a club is 24 points for 3 years. Each year, 8 points will be deducted. If you don't join a club, all 8 points will be deducted. Let's do the math. How many additional courses do you need to take to make up for the gap? To the students, this was the most realistic problem. After all, a main course only gave them 4 credits a year. The gap between 2 main courses was enough to wipe out most people's year's worth of hard work. At that moment, there was an uneasy commotion in the office. It seemed that the school was serious. This was too different from their previous school. At this moment, Li Mingde gave them another heavy blow. The final deadline for new students to join the club is September 30th. Today is the 28th. I still have time, right? But I have to remind you that tomorrow is the weekend. Most clubs won't be accepting new members. A bunch of people lowered their heads to look at their watches, and then their faces turned ashen. Love, Gobe, Small, say, Netka the club activity would end at 6 o'clock, but it was already 5:20 now. In other words, even if he turned around and left now, he would have less than 40 minutes to find a club, apply for membership, and go through the procedures. This was assuming that the club was willing to accept him. Someone immediately screamed, "Isn't he dead for sure?" Shui Lei and Luo Nan glanced at each other. They discovered that this situation was extremely similar to what Chen Xiaolin had warned them about. They lowered their heads and played dead. Li Mingde waved his hand when he saw the group of people who were either lifeless or devastated. Whether it's the school or me as a consultant, I've already fulfilled my obligation to inform you. As for the choices you've made, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. All right, time is running out. If you still want to save your credits, hurry up and work hard. Hey, that's it? Aside from Shui Lei, who withdrew from the society on his own, and Luo Nan, who was a special case, most people had introverted personalities. They were irresolute and indecisive. Add to that the fact that they were 15 or 16 years old and inexperienced, and they were already out of their wits after a few rounds of bombardment. What freedom of choice was this? The group of people looked at each other. No one dared to move. Some of the more timid ones were already on the verge of tears. Luo Nan and Shui Lei, who originally wanted to withdraw, found it embarrassing to move again. This lasted until a person with a bit of a flexible mind opened his mouth and stammered. Then consultantly, "It's already this time. We won't make it in time no matter how fast we rush. Can the school make some arrangements?" The school won't interfere with the students' freedom of choice. Li Mingde continued to emphasize the word, freedom of choice, and ignored him. The young man became anxious and began to speak indiscriminately. "But you're the consultant. Shouldn't you help the students solve their problems? You little brats. You want me to take the lead at this time?" Though he said this, Li Mingde's stern face still softened a bit. He leaned back in his chair and muttered to himself for a moment. "How about this? I'll give you guys a suggestion. It's just a suggestion." No matter what came out of his mouth, the students who were in desperate straits were able to accept it. A suggestion is fine. A suggestion is fine. With one person taking the lead, many people responded. The office soon turned into a field of chaos. Li Mingde shook his head and extended his hand to point at the group of students. "Actually, I'll just say one thing. It's hard to avoid being a bit more realistic at times like this. You guys don't even need to think about societies with great fame and resources. Individual interests and specialties also have to be put aside. Everything has to be done with the goal of joining the society. First, you have to ensure that you have a place to stay. The group of young people thought about it for a bit and felt that it was reasonable. They all said, "That's right, that's right." Then you can only choose those that are less popular and have less direction. These societies often have limited activities and resources. You guys might have glanced over them before, but this time you can't care about it. Li Ming decide. To put it bluntly, saving your credits and ensuring the quality of your studies is the most important. This is my suggestion. You guys have heard it. Now hurry up and do it. The dozen or so young people looked at each other. It sounded reasonable, but it was a bit too general. Li Mingda saw the expressions of the group and laughed. I've already said it this much. What else do you guys want? Do you feel that there isn't enough time? How about this? I'll give you guys a backdoor. If you feel that you really can't choose in half an hour, then add another night. Tomorrow before 8 o'clock in the morning, contact me and tell me your choice. I'll try to communicate with those societies and arrange a reply or an interview for you guys. You can't be any later. Any later and I won't be able to arrange it. Plus, I can't guarantee success. An extra night of time to think was obviously good, but the problem was that it wasn't reliable. Someone revealed a bitter expression. Advisor, there are over 4,000 societies in the school. Can't you draw a range or something? Do you think this is a final exam? Li Mingda glared at him and pondered for a moment. He knocked on the table and the AI office system switched the interface. A string of society names appeared according to the conditions he had set down. There were 30 to 40 societies. I've searched a few in the administrative system. You guys can take a look. The crowd squeezed forward, and Xue Lei, who was at the very front, swept his gaze over and laughed. Cannibal Potted Art Interest Group? Hazy Female Poetry Psychological Research Society? Nebula M31 Advanced Life Telepathy Society? What the hell? Luo Nan didn't join in the fun. He was dizzy from being squeezed by the crowd, so he took advantage of the crowd to retreat backwards, temporarily hiding in peace. The matter of school credits and societies were admittedly important, but most of his brain was still stirring with that long electric wire. He unconsciously took out the membrane bag and stared at it in a daze. And at this time, he saw that the electric wire had already pierced a small hole through the bag. Half of it was exposed, and it appeared to be sharper than he imagined. The material is indeed special. But how could this be a problem with the material? Luo Nan finally pinched the long wire in his hand, but he was stupefied in the next moment. This was the first time he made contact with it without any obstacles. The long wire felt excessively slender to the touch, but there was an inconceivable temperature that seeped into him. He carefully savored it. It was neither hot nor cold, but it was like a numbing electric energy. It was guided from his fingertips and instantly spread throughout his entire body. His body didn't do anything, but the long wire that fluttered with the breeze in the room suddenly sprang straight. It was like an extremely tough needle, trembling back and forth. Luo Nan was immediately stupefied. He didn't know what kind of principle this was. His wristband vibrated slightly during his puzzlement. A phone call came in. He instinctively extended his hand to press it, but he forgot about the long wire that was trembling at his fingertips. He pushed it forward, and the front end of the long wire made contact with the side of his wristband. Unexpectedly, there was no sound. It pierced straight in, and half of its length of 7 or 8 centimeters went in an instant. And at this moment, electricity ran through Luo Nan's hand. His fingertips went numb, and he couldn't hold it for a time. He watched helplessly as the remaining half of the long wire drilled in. It was like a living creature, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chapter 42. Genius 1 second. Remember if you want to go? Xiaofan provides you with wonderful novels to read. Luo Nan stared blankly at all of this. He was completely unable to stop it. Probably because it was pierced by the long thread, the interface of the bracelet that lit up instantly became chaotic, and then the screen went off. But the screen lit up once more in less than half a second and returned to normal. There were still incoming calls, and there were still vibrating reminders. But Luo Nan noticed that the style of the interface was clearly different from before. Furthermore, he looked strangely familiar. He stared at the interface of the wristband in a daze until Xue Lei walked over and reminded him, "Hey, the phone." It was as if Luo Nan had awoken from a dream. Only now did he truly see the message of the communication number clearly. His eyelids twitched, and his first reaction was to block this fellow. In the blink of an eye, the first round of tremors had just ended, but right after that, the second round came. Luo Nan let out a breath and answered the call. In the next moment, a hearty, friendly and magnetic voice came from the bracelet. "Brother Nan, it's me, Xie Junping. I know which one you are." Luo Nan really didn't want to pay attention to this person. From yesterday until now, more than 30 hours of torment, as well as the subsequent troubles that could be seen and not seen, all stemmed from this fellow's outrageous behavior. If this bastard dared to immediately show himself, Luo Nan would absolutely be happy to do some experiments on his body that were normally inconvenient.
Luo Nan wouldn't even blink. However, Xie Junping's shamelessness had reached a new level. Seeing that Luo Nan was silent for a moment, she immediately apologized profusely. I'm really sorry. Junior Nan, yesterday's matter was all on me. Actually, I should have contacted you last night, but because I had to prepare something, I didn't have the time to talk about it in detail. How about this? I'll go to school right now. Junior Nan, where are you? Let's meet up and I'll apologize to you face to face.
Xie Junping affectionately called Luo Nan little brother Nan, but Luo Nan had goosebumps all over his body when he heard it. This fellow must have pondered for a long time on how to address him before coming up with such an answer.
Luo Nan really didn't want to be involved with this sort of person.
He responded in a lukewarm manner, "Senior, there's no need to be so polite.
I have things to do over here." "What is it? Do you need help? I'm free today, so I can still lend a hand."
Luo Nan shook his head as he listened.
"Can't you show some of the arrogance of a rich second generation? Wagging his tail like that, anyone would know that he had ulterior motives."
Strangely enough, Xie Junping's words were filled with nervousness. Could it be that he was still worried about that trivial matter being exposed?
It didn't matter if it was the nightclub or the fated one.
Luo Nan's understanding of Luo Nan's lower limits would be refreshed if Luo Nan didn't handle this matter well. "It's nothing. I can handle it myself." Right now Luo Nan was completely convinced by his older cousin, Mo Ya's words. Getting entangled with this group of rich kids was bound to not have any good consequences.
Li Xueqing was like this, and Xie Junping was more or less the same. However, Xie Junping's pestering skills were also first-rate. Efficiency. Why drag it out to an hour when we can finish it in 10 minutes? Where are you? Can you share your coordinates?
I'll go find you.
Luo Nan frowned, but he instinctively glanced at the interface of his wristband. The screen that had darkened during the call automatically lit up, displaying a small and exquisite interface. It was indeed different. Previously, Luo Nan's wristband interface had a classic automatically formulated theme. The color was white, concise and bright, without any embellishments. But now the main color of the interface had changed to a space blue. There were fine stars decorating it, and even the software icons had been replaced. The problem was that it was still so familiar. Aside from the slight difference in the layout, this was clearly the interface theme of his flexible e-ink screen. Damn it. The matter with the wristband interface was truly strange. Luo Nan felt that his brain wasn't enough to handle it. He didn't want to stay in the noisy office, so he called out to Xue Lei and walked out first. Without a doubt, he was the first person out of this group of students to walk out of the office. Xue Lei also wanted to follow, but he didn't know what the problem was. Li Mingde called him back, and he walked back with a bitter expression. Luo Nan walked out, but it wasn't good to leave Xue Lei behind. He stopped in the hallway outside the door and waited. Xie Junping was still chattering endlessly there. Hey, Junior Nan. Can you hear me? Give me the coordinates." "Coordinates my ass." Luo Nan's thought had just started when he saw the interface of his wristband change. It was the GPS setting area. The relevant coordinates sharing option appeared before his eyes. It was as if an invisible hand had completed the operation in an instant, skipping all the intermediate links. Luo Nan was a bit stupefied. Currently,
voice control could achieve this kind of effect for smart devices. But Luo Nan was extremely certain that his mouth absolutely didn't spit out a single syllable. What was truly effective was his telepathic thoughts. Luo Nan held the thought of experimenting and moved his thoughts. Share. Sure enough, the relevant option lit up. Xie Junping was overjoyed on the other end of the phone. He hurriedly said, "I'll be there soon," and cut off the call. Luo Nan looked at the interface of his wristband in a daze. He had actually set up a portion of the data sharing between the wristband and the flexible e-ink screen. The interface's false labels were fine. But what was up with this telepathic control mode? Telepathic control wasn't something new. But the problem was that Luo Nan didn't carry any sensing equipment. The wristband itself didn't have this kind of function. Of course, Luo Nan clearly remembered that there was an extra long wire in the wristband before the marvelous change occurred. And at this moment, Luo Nan suddenly recalled a certain person's words in the Precision Electronics Interest Society. Processor, storage module, signal transceiver module, sensor. You don't have any of them. Do you normally use this board as a mirror? Of course, the flexible e-ink screen wasn't a mirror. Luo Nan was using it very well. If this fact were to be established, then wouldn't that mean that the long needle possessed a processor, storage module, signal transceiver module, sensor, and other complex functions? Let's not talk about anything else, but in terms of storage and sensor, reality was impatiently verifying it for him. While Luo Nan was in a daze, students came out one after another from the office. Some walked hurriedly. Some let out long sighs of relief. But there was no trace of Xue Lei. Finally, there was the sound of the door. It was Li Mingde who came out first. His expression wasn't too good. Xue Lei came out after him. He saw Luo Nan and grinned at him. Li Mingde also saw Luo Nan. He still remembered this student who had avoided his good intentions and walked out of the office. His expression sank and he took the initiative to speak. "You're called Luo Nan, right?" Luo Nan was a bit startled and said, consultantly, "Have you chosen your society yet?" "Not yet." "Then hurry up. Don't dawdle." Li Mingde's tone was very firm. Luo Nan didn't know why Li Mingde was in a bad mood. But he didn't care. He just nodded in agreement. The problem was that Li Mingde became angry when he saw Luo Nan's careless attitude. He quickly transformed from the grade consultant to the head of the discipline department. "Also, you skipped class for the entire day yesterday. Your nature is very vile. You must write an explanation. Give the reason why you skipped class. You can understand it as a self-reflection. You must be clear about the facts and you must come up with a reason that can convince the teacher. Otherwise, it will be very hard to obtain a good evaluation for the 3 main courses and 2 auxiliary courses. The pressure in terms of credits will be even greater." Luo Nan didn't say a word. He just bowed to show that he understood. Li Mingde was especially annoyed by Luo Nan's silence, but he couldn't say much. He walked away with his hands behind his back with a calm expression. He walked to the entrance of the elevator before shaking his head and snorting, "Child!" Luo Nan and Xue Lei looked at each other. They were both helpless. "What did he call you for just now?" "It seems that there's some sort of fight club that wants to recruit me." He asked consultantly to help him ask and I replied. This was the same as hitting 2 nails in a row. No wonder he wanted to curse. Li Mingde was already 70 years old. He had the privilege of flaunting his seniority. Luo Nan and Xue Lei didn't care about this. They prepared to leave from another place. The elevator door opened on the other side of the hallway and Xie Junping hurriedly came out. The corners of his clothes carried the wind. He didn't look sideways as he brushed past Li Mingde. Li Mingde was stunned. He wanted to greet him, but he saw Xie Junping sweep a glance at Luo Nan and burst into laughter. "Junior Nan! Junior Nan! You made me look for you." But you're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.